everybody. Welcome, everyone joining us tonight in at home. Today is November 13th, 2017, of the Selectmen Board meeting. Before we get started, if we could, everyone rise for our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty God, creator of all, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help as we are gathered together. We thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed on our community. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We each pray to you in the manner we were taught. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, first and foremost, I need to open up a public hearing to go over the classification hearing. Would Mr. Tom Berube come up, please? Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the timely attention to this. It's the last piece of the puzzle in our getting our tax rate certified, which hopefully will happen sometime this week. As has been the case every year we've done this, there are basically four things that you need to decide. First of all, we're going to classify our taxes according to the different classes of property, meaning residential, commercial, industrial, or are we going to tax them all equally? Secondly, do we have any open space that we would give a discount to? Third, are we going to adopt a residential exemption, which would give people with lower value properties a tax break and shift that burden to people who own more expensive properties? And then the fourth thing would be, will we do the same thing with commercial properties? It's called a small commercial exemption, and what we would do is shift some of the tax burden from the less expensive businesses in town to the more expensive. The Board of Assessors recommends on the first item as to the what is called a residential factor, that we adopt a residential factor of 1, which would mean that we would tax all classes of property equally. On the second item, we do not have any land in town that's classified as open space, so it becomes a moot point. The third item is the residential exemption. The board recommends that, given the property profile in town, that we do not accept a residential exemption. And same thing with the commercial exemption, that given the profile of commercial properties in town, it would be prudent for us to leave as is. Any questions?
Any questions?
Should we do them in that order? Because the order I've got here isn't quite the order you gave us.
I'm not sure what you have. I sent around a copy of the actual LA5 that I submit.
And Janet uses this each year.
You can do it in any order you want.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
I tried to stay as consistent with what the DOR does going forward, just to avoid any points of confusion. But actually, it doesn't matter what order you do them in. As long as you get to the same conclusion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move to set an open space assessment.
Second, a motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Do you have any further conversation?
The recommendation is to vote no, right? Tom? Yep.
Yes. Correct, I should say.
Okay. We all set to vote? Any other questions? I'm sorry. No. Okay. So the recommendation is to vote no on this, correct? Just to reiterate? Okay. So all in favor? Is that what we're doing? All right, all in favor? All right. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. So that's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I move to establish a residential exemption.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
No.
Questions? Okay. I don't have it in front of me because my thing won't open. Okay. All right, so all those in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
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 Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the small commercial exemption.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Unanimous?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend a tax classification factor of 1.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Note that the, pushing a vote for yes on this one, okay, the recommendation. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay. And, David?
With pleasure, I move to close the public tax classification hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
I didn't see
I'll
that.
I didn't see that.
motion.
Motion and a second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
If I could just indulge you for a moment to have you sign the LA5 so I can submit it first thing in the morning, I'd appreciate it. Down the bottom if you would, please, Larry.
Oh. Well,
Started the trend.
There we go.
I saw a big open space and took it.
It's, we went for it, Gary, don't blame me.
Okay. Any other business? No? Okay,
Thank
we hear a motion to close the public hearing.
Already done.
Already done, great.
There's good.
That's right, we did it on that. All right, fantastic. Thanks, Tom, appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we got some appointments, chief, you wanna come up?
Yes, please. Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Good evening.
and thank you for taking the time for us tonight. I have tonight before you 3 appointments, but the first 2 appointments are for full-time officers. The positions are being replaced right now due to a vacancy that we had back in September, and we have another retirement coming up in March. So, as you're aware, we take our full-time officers from our reserve staff. We had 6 reserve officers apply for the position. They're already working here, they've been vetted. We had an assessment. That assessment was a pretty aggressive assessment because we had some veteran officers here that had worked in the community. And the 2 officers I present to you tonight are the ones that topped that assessment. And Officer LaFeb is the first appointment for the first vacancy, and Officer Taylor Ford is the second. So what I've done is I put together a letter for you and the rest of the board members, because included in their appointment is a conditional offer where they would have to complete the academy and all of the necessary requirements to become a full-time officer. Although they're a reserve officer, there are some stipulations that have to occur for them to become full-time. And what I've also done is, because of our retention issue that we've had in the past, each officer has signed and agreed to a 3-year retention agreement. So I have a copy of that retention agreement for you, as well as the letter outlining what we're doing here tonight. The appointment for Officer LaFeb would be effective January 1st, and then expiring June 30th of 18. And Officer Ford would be appointed January 2nd, with her appointment expiring on June 30th of 18 as well. And the reason for the staggered appointment is obviously seniority. Officer LaFeb was offered a position first for the first vacancy, so just to ensure contractual obligations are followed, we don't want to have full-time people appointed on the same day.
Okay.
And the 3-year retention agreement is with regard to the academy fee and the necessary expenses to put an officer through the academy. And it's for a 3-year period, which they both signed. And town administrators just signed them, they'll be put on file with Janet's office as soon as she's back.
All right, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So question from the board?
Who are we speaking with here, Chief?
This is Officer Heather LaFeb.
Hi.
All right, so I'll start. So we always ask, if you can give us some background on yourself, and some history, that'll be great, so we can get to know you a little bit.
Okay. Well, I went to Riviera College for 4 years. Riviera University now. After that, I began working at Merrimack PD as a dispatcher. And then from there, I began working here as reserve officer and dispatcher as well. And I've been here for about 5 years now. I was recently appointed full-time dispatch here, and now, thankfully, I've been appointed full-time officer.
Correct. Congratulations.
I think it's important to note too that Officer Joanne Morrissey was recently appointed a little over a year and a half by this board, and bringing 2 new full-time female officers will bring our complement of full-time officers up to a quarter of our department. So we've moved in a very aggressive direction with regard to that in the 21st century policing model, and these officers have earned that. These assessments are not easy. I think Officer LaFeb can attest to you've done this. This was your third.
Yes.
This was her third go-around, and this time she got it right, and we're excited that she's here, and I think she'll make a fine full-time officer for our community.
Sure.
So you took, CJ is your major?
I double majored in criminal justice and psychology.
Oh, okay, great.
She's smart, too.
Psychology, she's in the right place.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut if I don't too much about me.
Okay. Any further questions from the board?
Maybe more for our town administrator. I mean, we, I think, rely on our chief a lot. Whereas, and I think we typically don't end up asking a lot of questions because we rely on him to bring us the best. He does a good job. But I guess more to, we, in several past months, we're going over things to set us with state standards on employee hiring. So it looks like we are working towards this, as the chief said, I guess, by having, what you say, 25% now?
Yes,
Or near 25%?
Yes,
And
that's
so
correct, Mr. Fowler.
So that puts us going in the correct direction, I guess, or keeps us in the,
Well, it does in the big picture, but most important that these women are the most qualified people applying for the job, too.
okay.
That's the most important criteria for me. I think that, if you look at the process, the candidates will speak for themselves once they go through that assessment. It's an all-day assessment, and we bring in outside chiefs and other personnel to review these candidates and to go through scenario-based training and to go through their background. And I think that's important in this process because they do work here. And that is always our shining light in Georgetown, is that we hire from our reserve force. So we don't take someone who's brand new to bring them into the community on a full-time basis. They've worked for us part-time. They've had to go through that gauntlet, so to speak. And they're able to prove themselves, and we're able to see if it's a comfortable match between the employee and the agency.
Chief, I have a question for you.
Sure.
And hopefully I can ask this. What goes into an assessment? When you say they ranked highest on the assessment.
Well, the assessment itself is based on, obviously, knowledge of criminal law, unlike, say, a general knowledge exam where departments are hiring civilians. We're hiring police officers, so the assessment is very succinct with regard to police work and their knowledge and workings of our community. So they would be given scenario-based questions. They would be scored based on that performance in dealing with that scenario, as well as foundation of law. And obviously today, we live in a very complicated world, so police officers are not only just law enforcement officers or warriors, so to speak, we're guardians of our community. So you have to have a myriad of knowledge, whether it be juvenile, elderly, anything that would come across a police officer's daily work. So it's not just law enforcement anymore. It's easy to be a law enforcement officer. It's much more difficult to be a police officer.
All right. Any other questions from the board? No? All right. You have any questions for us, Heather?
I do not.
No? Okay. All right. So
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint to the role of full-time officer Heather LaFeb with effective January 1st, 2018 with the term to expire June 30th, 2018.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's it.
Congratulations.
Quick and easy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You got some?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I can't get around all
That's
these
all
guys.
right. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now present to you Officer Taylor Ford, who also
Taylor.
went through the
How are you?
same assessment process that Officer LaFev did. Officer Ford is a full-time dispatcher at the regional call center down in Middleton, known as the Rec. And she's been working with us now as a reserve dispatcher and a reserve officer now for about 2 years. And again, she went through the same process. She resides in Beverly, and I think she'd be a wonderful fit. She also started at another department in Topsfield as a dispatcher before going to the Rec, so she does have experience in other agencies. And I'm glad that, you know, she found her home with us, and she's excelled during her 2 years here, and she too topped the assessment during that gauntlet. So I present Officer Taylor Ford to you as well.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Who got the highest score?
Heather.
Thank you for being honest.
It's okay.
They were close, though. They were close.
That was my first question. Okay. Any questions from the board?
So where did you do your schooling?
I graduated from North Shore Community College with an associate's in criminal justice. And from there, I started my part-time career in Topsfield. But I was an intern with them while I was still in school.
Do you have plans on obtaining any further education, bachelor's?
Yeah,
master's,
absolutely.
or-
After I get out of the academy, that's the first thing that I want to do is to go back to
Right.
school.
Right.
Any other questions? Do you live in town?
I'm from Beverly. I live in Beverly now.
You live in
From
Beverly?
Lynn, yes, but
Okay.
I'm now in Beverly.
Okay.
Mr. Surface likes people from Lynn.
I like
I'm there
people
every day.
I just recently moved out of Lynn, so.
Okay. Any other again, it's not that, you know,
It's okay.
we rely, you know, Chief, you know, we rely on Chief as, Selectman Fowler said, you know, we always back the chief in his appointment, so. Any other questions from the board? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Taylor Ford as a full-time police officer with an effective date of January 2nd, 2018, with a term to expire June 30th, 2018.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Congratulations.
English or classical?
English.
All right. there you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome to Georgetown.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more appointment. It's a lateral promotion, so there was no need for the officer to come tonight. It's more procedural than anything. But Officer Matthew Carapellucci has been working with us since 2012. We had a similar assessment for the position of detective. We've had a vacancy in the detective's office for quite a while. And with all these changes that's been going on, we've finally been able to pull together an assessment team and get that done as well. So I submit to you the appointment of Matthew Carapellucci to detective, rank of detective, and that appointment would expire 2020, according to the other full-time appointments that were made for 2017 to 2020.
Okay.
That's when his formal appointment would expire.
Effective today.
Yes, sir.
So this is, what's his rank now? Is it
Patrol.
just a
He's a
title
patrol
change?
officer, yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Matthew Carapellucci to the rank of detective, effective November 13, 2017, with a term to expire 6/30/2020.
I'll Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
passes.
Chairman.
Absolutely, chief.
Thank you.
Congratulations to him.
We have other
Wherever he
appointments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have other appointments with regard to the Rock Pond Committee, but that will probably wait until we go through the
So
agenda.
you're gonna
items.
stay? 'Cause
Yeah,
I had a
I'll
couple
stay,
of
yeah.
questions.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
Aye.
chief. Appreciate it. Alright. Is there anybody here from the water department? Mike, is that-
They have a commission meeting. They don't need to be present for that.
They don't need to be present for that? Okay. So I'll hold off on that. We have a request here, for a class 2 used car, sales license, Route 133 fuel. Let's go on up.
How you doing?
How you doing?
So before we get started, I held the door. I believe it was for you downstairs.
It
and
was
he
me.
said, thanks, Steve, when I held the door for him. So I guess I'll take that as a compliment, right?
If you can give us
Good looking, yeah, I agree.
your actual name, I was gonna say.
Yeah, my name's Richard Davenport. I'm the vice president of Route 133 Fuel.
Hi, Richard. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Okay. So Richard, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you're here, and we'll have some questions from the board.
So I started out in 2006 as a cashier at a mobile station. I worked my way up to manager, then general manager of the whole company, and now I sit before you as the vice president. This is going to be our 9th site that we're taking over, and we feel that it's viable to have a used car license at this site in order to, maintain profitability.
Okay. And this location is where?
It's 71 East Main Street. It's the BP gas station. I also have a copy of the fire inspection reports. They just delivered them today. We had a couple of issues that we straightened out, and they came to do a re-inspect. So I have.
So Richard, you were the prior owner as well?
No,
You're just
we're
buying it?
Yes, we're a new tenant there.
Oh, wait a minute. So you're a tenant?
Yes,
Or, so you're leasing?
correct.
Okay, so you don't own the property?
No.
Okay. Alright. And are you gonna keep the space functioning as it always has, or you are? So it's gonna be a BP and
Yep.
and everything?
Gasoline station, full service.
Okay. Alright, and you say you own a number of different,
The company that I work for, we own 9 sites in Massachusetts. The closest repair station is in Linfield. And then we also own 4 sites in Florida. Unfortunately, I don't get to go there too much, but we have somebody else down there that takes care of it.
you gonna be doing any, is there any renovation to the,
We've
from
just
the
been-
outside, it looks like it might need some.
Yeah,
That's
so
why
we've
I
been
asked.
cleaning up the lot. We just want to get the place going, and as soon as we start to, get some profit in there, we'll definitely invest some money into the building. We already remodeled the inside of the store. We tiled the floor. It used to just be concrete, and painted the walls. We're trying to dress it up and make it look nice. And I look forward to being a part of this community. I actually grew up in Boxford, so I know the area really well.
Okay, great. And, so you're gonna be, it's gonna be both gas and you're gonna be selling cars on the lot as well?
Cars and service.
So same, how many cars are you gonna be on the lot at one time?
Probably 15 cars. That's what the license,
License
previous
says
license
15.
called for.
Okay. Okay. All right. Other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes, sir.
2 things. Is this a transfer or this is a brand new license?
This is a brand new license.
Brand new, okay. Second thing is just a comment is to, one of my pet peeves is signage. So, please have a conversation with the building inspector and do
Absolutely.
your very best to adhere to the sign policy.
Of course.
I mean, I just don't wanna see flags and, those crazy signs
Yeah.
waving and, it just, I don't want it to look like Route 1,
Absolutely.
as you're driving through Saugus, and no offense to Saugus, but we're a small town,
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, any other, questions from the board?
Actually,
Yep.
so how, the upgrade of the station, has the pumps been upgraded in the past, or will they need to be, or do we know
The
about it?
pumps are currently PCI compliant. They're Ovation pumps. It's a newer model. So as of right now, they don't stand to be upgraded.
Okay.
Does weights and measures need to go out there to inspect before you open?
I believe we're good until the end of the year, but I can call them just to make sure. As long as the tags are still on the pumps. If there isn't a tag on the pump, we can't pump any gas from that dispenser.
I was told that the state inspected all the pumps in town this fall.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Gary?
Probably more point of order. I've never seen so much paperwork for a used car license, to be truthful with you. But on the one I have, you asked a question, I'm not seeing,
Okay.
it's blanked out, but that does say 15 in there, I believe, on the license. I can kind of read 15 in there.
Where are you, Gary?
Well, this is just a copy of the license that we're to sign.
Oh, it's not blanked out, it is
Highlighted.
shaded.
It's
It
highlighted,
says,
okay, and it does
it
say,
says 15 vehicles for
Oh.
sale at any one time.
okay, thank you, so
No
that's
more
on
than
there.
15
Now,
vehicles.
there's probably gonna be more to Mike, and it's more for a point of order. On the back of that, Mike, on the top part, shouldn't that be filled out with, what was it? It's Richard Davenport?
Correct.
Yeah,
I believe you have
Richard-
a copy of the old license for that property.
No, because this is called Route 133 Fuel
Oh, okay.
Incorporated.
It has Richard Alcori's name on it as the president of the company. I'm listed as the vice president.
No, that's further, that's further in here, but on this, it's, you know, it's got the name and you put down the company name, that goes down lower, so I would think up here, on the backside, Mike, it should have either his or Mr., how did you pronounce it?
Yeah, El Corey.
Al Corey's name and address, I think, not the company name. I'm just, you know, it just might save you something when it gets to the state or somewhere else if it's, I'm not positive that's Janet's probably more on top of this than any of us.
Well, what I'm looking at is Richard L. Corey, Route 133 Fuel Inc., 71 East Main.
Okay, see, I just got Route 132 Fuel Inc. on the one I have.
Yeah, no, then
So that one-
that's
I
an
believe
older.
that's the workers' comp affidavit.
No, this is a copy of the license,
Oh,
and then
okay.
this is on the back, so perhaps maybe it's the way it came, so it's the way it's in my packet. So maybe that is the,
Yeah, I think she
okay,
was,
that's the
she
workers'
was just,
comp. I thought it was the back side of the license.
no, she was just double copying.
Okay,
There's
so
nothing
that's
on-
not the
there's
back side.
Nothing on the back of the
Okay,
actual
all
license.
right. And then as you cleared up for us, you are listed as the vice president, and you live in Salem, New Hampshire at the time, okay. And so, Mr. Richard
Alcori.
El Corey is, okay, he's the one that owns, I imagine, 11 others, you
Correct.
said? Okay. And the only other one is, I guess you've gotta put up bonding to sell cars, which I don't think I've ever seen before in our licenses, and, these are all out of state, but I guess that our state will approve that, cause it says they do business in Massachusetts. But I just found it kinda interesting that it's the same name on here, Mr. Paul Buffett, and he's got a Western Surety Company in South Dakota, and then he's also got CNA Surety Company in St. Louis. Where is that? Montana, or Missouri, rather. So I'm just, that is so in case something goes wrong with the cars or something, I guess people have a backing in case you guys
I believe
left
so.
town. But it doesn't sound like you're in the position of doing that,
No,
cause you've got.
no, we're an
you've
established
got
business.
these- Yeah, you sound established, but just, is there a reason why is no surety companies to put up bond in Massachusetts, or this is just where you get the better price, do you know, or?
It's just who our local agent purchases through.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. Any other questions from the board? All right, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve a Class 2 used car license for Route 133 Fuel Inc. with a term to expire, not a term, but a date, to
December
expire
30.
December 31st, 2018.
2017.
17, okay.
I'll Second.
Sorry.
Okay, we have a motion, in a second. Do we have any further discussion?
I have another question. When do
Yes.
you plan on opening?
So tomorrow we're opening for fuel, fuel and repairs. As far as the car license, it probably is gonna take us at least 3 weeks to get inventory, make sure we have all the proper documentation and are ready to open for that.
Actually, I do have one other question. When was the last time any kind of, hazardous material, environmental study been done on that site? Have you guys looked at that?
So we do daily compliance checks. So we have a red environmental binder on site. So there's a daily, a weekly, and a monthly inspection that you have to do depending on
Okay,
hanging hardware, or if it's underground storage tanks, or a solid hazardous waste drum. You have to do checklists to make sure that there's no deficiencies.
okay.
So we have all those on site, and we actually have an environmental compliance department that has records of everything for the past 3 years.
I think those were all updated probably within the last 10 years too. I remember work going on in there just like it did at the mobile in
mobile,
the center
yeah.
of town, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we already have a, motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All good. Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Take care. Have a good night.
You too. Do we have anybody here from the ADA tour? No? Mike, was someone supposed to be here from that, or?
No,
No?
no.
All right. Do we have this here every year?
We have a tour to cure. Yeah,
I think it's a repeat from reading it over
Yeah, I've
from
heard-
last
yeah.
year. Maybe only their second year.
So they're basically wanting us to approve this without anybody here? Without any discussion?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's the one that,
Do we have everything in place? Do we have their insurances?
well, it's not gonna be until May, so we'll get we'll get the,
Oh, yeah, okay.
everything in place before the race.
All right, so I think in any motion, we wanna make sure we add that,
Yes.
okay? All right, do we have, any, questions on the board, regarding this? Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, I would recommend if we could maybe put them on the agenda for the next session. It seems like they have time. Would be good to have them come in and just, I don't recall it from last year, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah,
They did, if, there's a letter there from, Chris Roop,
Yeah.
they used the rail trail. They had to get permission to use that last year. So yeah, they have used it, more than, I think, last year. But
Is
they
there
they
anything-
just started offering the off-road experience. It used to be just a road race. Now they're getting people with, trail bikes in the races too.
Is there anything that the town has to do to prep the rail trail? I know it gets cleaned periodically, right?
Well, the rail trail people are aware, and they've actually, they've actually built a bridge for it.
okay.
It's been, it's just that they're way ahead of themselves this year.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so that was my next question. Why, we're not even at Thanksgiving yet, and they're looking for something for May 20th?
Yeah, they have to put a lot of PR in place to do this, and then they always check with the police department and let them know how many riders they're gonna have, things like that. the times for the race.
I think if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
To what Steve said, we usually do have more information than what we've got in the packet. I mean, we've got a nice letter here from Chris Roop, you know, and that they've done some work in the past to help put the rail trail in. And I appreciate them doing due diligence to get here early, but
There are 7 links in here with the different distances for the various races that they have. But you wouldn't have it in, the only thing we have in the packet are the links, so you'd have to use that to find the routes anyhow.
Yep, Steve.
Yeah, do we have a policy for the board that we, if people, no matter how many times they come in, is there a policy that we have that says, you know, just, it would be nice for, you know, if they wanna do something, just to come in and have a brief conversation with the board?
I think Janet usually suggests that.
Okay,
I don't know what conversation was held this time around.
okay.
I think, my guess is because it's been approved multiple times before, that Janet probably told them it's okay not to come.
We could approve it with condition.
So they had the race here last year?
Yes.
Chief, were there any incidents? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but.
No, what we usually do is, I mean, we have many of these events now, and there's a particular process that we follow with the organizers. We actually go out, Lieutenant Hatch will go out and actually run the track, or not physically run it, but he'll examine that track, whether it be a bike race, a road race. We have motorcycle runs that come through, and we just make sure that given the time and the day of the event, that there are no traffic issues. These folks have come before us in the past, and I don't recall any specific issues with regard to that organization off the top of my head.
Okay. All right, well, listen, we can certainly, vote it tonight. If there aren't any other questions. All right,
So, Mike, do you know, have they submitted all the necessary paperwork?
Well, they haven't submitted insurance yet.
Yeah.
we can put that in the motion, right?
Yeah, so it can be on condition.
Yeah, and I wasn't involved with this. Janet normally handles these type of things.
Yeah, I think if you put it in a motion, maybe we also condition it, for maybe a report back, cause I like them to make sure, that maybe they check in with chief, maybe a month prior or something in terms of their route.
Yeah, they would be required to anyways.
Yep,
And
so-
we would actually reach out to them too. We always make sure that there's a follow-up just prior to the event, because we could have road closures, construction, things can change.
Yep.
So I don't preface the approval with the day the permit's issued, it's within a couple of weeks before the event.
Okay, all right, with that being said, does anyone want to make a motion? Anybody at all?
Well,
No?
I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the ADA Tour de Cure for Sunday, May 20th, 2018, but only on the conditions that they'd stop by here for a meeting and present all the proper paperwork.
Specifically,
Insurance.
yep, specifically the insurance.
It's up to the pleasure of the board whether you want them to appear here or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need them to.
Okay, then we'll
So-
just rescind that portion of it.
Okay.
So I move that we approve the ADA Tour de Cure request for Sunday, May 20, 2018, on condition they present their insurance paperwork
And their route to the chief.
and their route inspection.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay? I mean, all those nays?
Nay.
I abstain.
Abstain.
Abstain, so we got 2-1 with 2 abstentions.
2 to 1, so that passes.
Yep. Okay. All right, that passed. Okay, part of the- Okay, why don't we get, is, Mr. Hoover in the audience, where is he? There he is, why don't you come on down? And while you come down, I apologize to our scouts in the back, I wanna welcome you. I didn't see you at first when you came in, so I apologize. But you know, our scouts are here today observing the meeting, going for one of their badges. So we want to welcome them to our meeting. And certainly, gentlemen, if you have any questions, I will welcome your questions. Okay, as it is going towards your badge. Okay. Yes. All right. Cool. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
How are you?
Very good, and yourselves tonight?
Good. Thank you for attending the meeting.
Thank you. Rob Hoover, for the record, Chair of Planning Board.
Bob Watts, a member of the planning board.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
So we're here tonight on behalf of the planning board and the issue of the street lighting, in particular the LED lighting. And I would like to think that we're also here on behalf of the town and the townspeople, and the idea that they have a say or should have a say in how their town is lit. So that's sort of the background for why we're here. And I think what I'd like to do is just briefly, as much for anybody who's watching, as much as for the board as well, but a brief history of the project. So this has to do with LED lighting, and back in 2016, on a personal, in a personal gesture, I reached out to the Georgetown Light Department in 2016 and asked them if they would meet with me for 15, 20 minutes in the evening to simply walk around and look at some of this lighting that was happening and to discuss it. And I was told no, they wouldn't do that. After that, I brought it to the planning board and made it official, and had the planning board issue a request that they kindly attend one of our meetings just to discuss with us what their plans were with this lighting that they were doing with the town. And the response back was, if this has to do with roadway lighting, and I quote, "there is no discussion to be had." Fast forward to not that long ago, they were in front of you folks. And they were in front of you folks for a grant. My understanding is that they were required to present to you folks to get your authorization for the grant. And knowing the planning board's concern, it would have been nice if somebody had notified us that they were coming in front of the selectmen, because we certainly would have been here. And I know they had a public hearing at some point in time, and again, it would have been nice to have been notified. We're all busy like you're all busy, and it's hard to keep up with every public hearing that's going on, and simply wasn't aware of it. That brings us to today, which is why we're here. And I think with regards to the LED lighting, there are two primary issues I want to talk about. And one is, when they were in front of you, I do not believe they ever presented the AMA report that came out in 2016, where the AMA, the American Medical Association, issued, and I don't use the word lightly, literally a precedent with commenting on LED lighting, and that it may, as you all know, science can never say it is a fact, but the AMA, that doesn't have any dog in this show, stated that the LED lighting that's being used today may in fact impact the health in a negative way of the human being. And then two, that there was disabling glare associated with these LED lights, which I think if anybody looks at some of these LED lights, you know what I'm talking about. So when that AMA article came out, that raised those issues, and so it's about, what do we do about where we are today? My understanding is they're at least 25% into the installation of 100% of the light fixtures that they have in place. There are, with regards to that and immediate concerns, there are mitigating things we can do if we can be afforded a conversation with them. And the mitigating measures, some of them have to do with, and I won't bore you with the details, I'll try to just stay at a certain level. There are house-side shields that should be mandatory for using LED lights. Right now, they're only used when someone complains. Many towns use them as a standard. The 3,000K is a number that represents to us, it comes across as a color. It's more of a yellowish color. Maybe a year ago, everything was 4,000K, which is the white LEDs that you see in town. Right now, my understanding is that they are putting in 3,000K for just residential. A lot of towns have just simply adopted 3,000 for just residential. A lot of towns have adopted 3,000 as standard, such as same thing as house-side shields. Another is the distribution of how the light goes down on the road. There are certain standards that can be incorporated as mitigating features. I won't get into those details. And then there are angle adjustments that can be taken, that can happen. So that's about the immediate concern. And with regards to what we do about the immediate concern, all I have ever tried to do, and then what the planning board has tried to do, is simply get together and have a discussion with everybody about this issue. My understanding is they're showing up on the 11th of.
Yeah, and you know, to preface that, so we did ask the light department to be present at this meeting tonight. They could not make it, you know, for their own reasons. I've asked them to attend the next one. They also cannot make, you know, that meeting either. So it will turn out that as of right now, okay, I've asked Janet to put them on the December 11th agenda so they can address these concerns that Mr. Hoover has. Okay, but you know, Mr. Hoover and I actually both decided that it was a good idea to at least, you know, put this on the table tonight, you know, with his concerns, so we can, you know, hear him out. Okay. So.
Thank you, and that's a good segue. The reason why I think this meeting is so important, and the reason why the planning board, was it 2 meetings ago, Bob? 2 meetings ago, where we issued a unanimous letter from the planning board, basically asking we have no jurisdiction with the light department. We're not looking for jurisdiction with the light department. We simply asked them if they would hold on any more lighting to temporarily stop the installation of additional lighting till we could fully vet this and have a discussion about this. And I think that's why this meeting was important with the selectmen, that my hope for the immediate issue is that the selectmen can do the same, can say, can you guys hold till we all get together to talk about this with additional lighting? That's the immediate.
And if I could stop you there once again, and to be fair, you know, as you know, Rob has mentioned, there is no jurisdiction, you know, I'll call it, you know, with the planning board, with the light department. The light department was nice enough to hold up on the job. Okay, they have made it clear to me that there is a certain amount of time that they cannot hold this job for an infinite amount of time until we go back and forth for the next 6 months. Okay, but they have agreed to stop at the 25% until such time that we can come together and have a discussion about the remainder of the job. Okay, I did get them to agree to that. You know, as I've mentioned to both parties, you know, I think it's important that we come together and we have a discussion. We kind of air out, you know, our concerns on both sides. Okay, and you know, and to be fair, I don't want, you know, folks out here, you know, people in this room and, you know, at home to think they haven't responded to you at all, right? I mean, they have responded to emails, okay, that I have seen.
Correct.
Okay, so they have done that, okay, but that has been the extent, okay, of giving you an audience, right? So I think we're at a good median right now, okay, and we just need to come together, okay, and have this discussion, make sure we air out, you know, what our concerns are, and maybe there's a happy median, you know, in the middle, okay, that everyone can agree on.
That's great news, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That's great news. So that's the immediate concern, and then the other issue I'd like to put on the table is what I call the long term, and it has to do with The current, some of the current departments that, for lack of a better term, and I've mentioned this on several occasions to the selectmen, operating in their own silo and this lack of communication with other departments. And so, once again, I'm putting in front of the selectmen, who are our leaders with this regard, the issue of one, perhaps there's an ability to put in place some non-binding bylaw, a bylaw that is non-binding, that requires departments to simply present what they're doing to some other department, but one clearinghouse, one group that is sort of overseeing everything. So that's that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, which quite personally, is the idea of a new town charter. And I know there's a lot of feelings about that, but I never see any discussion happening about it. So it's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a real tough one, I recognize that. But,
When he's done, can I go next?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
so that was really it, to highlight the AMA report, and that there's this immediate issue, and then there's the long-term issue,
Yep.
and I thank you very much for your time.
Sure, thanks for coming up. Mr. Fowler?
You bring up a very good point, Rob, but, and as far as bylaw and that, we have accepted a policy for the Board of Selectmen and procedures, policies, and regulations manual, and in that, we are supposed to do due diligence to meet with all, but it's rather new, we just accepted it. I guess we haven't quite gotten down to the roots of it, but we are making an effort to go down that route of trying to have quarterly meetings and things of that sort. So that has been accepted by us, but, they're just not, I guess on the lights, I mean, I read the email, I don't wanna take it too much out of content, but I mean, I think the way they answered you was polite. I don't think it was as bad as perhaps it was made to sound in this. But this started back in, you said 2016. How much do you, when you do, did this start because of developments, and you were into developments, and they must have been starting there with the new LED lightings? Or did this come to you because of, you've just noticed them going up in town?
No, it was sort of a gestalt of not only, this is what I do for a living, so I see it happening not only in Georgetown, I see it happening on the highways, I see it happening in other towns. When I'm on the other side of the table and I'm not on the planning board and I'm presenting projects, along with the AMA report came out. And when I knew, being a designer, that there was an issue, and when the AMA report came out, that's when it coalesced.
Okay, but just to go down that, so you can't, I guess the electric light department doesn't allow you, when people are coming in for developments, to set the regulations of lighting as a planning board. It sounds like
Correct.
They do that.
They do all roadway lighting,
Okay.
and
Now, it would be helpful if before this meeting, when it comes up on the 11th, if you could get to us perhaps, some of what you're referring to, because it's good to have all the information in front of you, like you said. You're referencing reports, but they're not in my packet, so it would be helpful for me to see some of that.
I thought
okay?
you had gotten, I thought you had gotten.
It's not, it's.
So
it's-
here's the AMA report.
Okay, then that, I'm sure that will be gotten to me. And also, you know, as you're stating about how we could have meetings and we could have quarterly meetings, you as a planning board could have also asked to get on the agenda of the light department. You know, if you weren't happy with the answer they got. So, and I'm not saying that as as a negative. I'm saying that if you couldn't get through one way, try the other way. Say, hey, if you can't come to my meeting, we wanna be on your agenda.
Well,
Try going that route, that's
so
all I'm saying.
let me respond to that. So after I personally asked to talk to him, and then after the planning board specifically asked them, we actually talked about it at the planning board, and I remember we said, well, we just probably need to go to one of their meetings. Then, when we found out they're at 7 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah, I've been to one.
combined, I've been to some in the past, combined with the fact, this is, we're volunteers.
I
We've,
agree.
we've got so many things to do, and I've gotta tell you, Gary, it did not rise to my level of everything else that I'm doing with my life. I'm not the one that's being paid as a light department to operate a system.
No, but if, I
So
guess
I
if you're as
wished
passionate as you
in
are.
in hindsight, in a perfect world, if I had more time, I would have gone to that meeting in the morning.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, and the same could be said, I mean, Rob and I talked about, they could have even attended our
I
meeting.
wasn't trying to put it as a
No,
negative.
I know,
Like I
but
said,
to
it's-
Rob's,
it's-
point, you know,
it's-
as you and I spoke about, you know, it's tough, it's not.
If you can't always get down one road, you find another way to get there. That's just what I'm saying.
Yep.
You know,
Gary, you all set?
thank you.
Any other questions, from the board? Steve?
Yeah, I agree with you, Rob. I mean, I think we should, and as Terry mentioned, we do have a policy now. We wanna, you know, start to interact with other boards, or have, you know, the selectmen kinda get an idea of what's going on in town, right? With other departments that we may have not had that insight in the past, so I think that's a good idea. I agree with you completely. You know, in terms of these LED lights, I have to say personally, I'm not in favor of them, not a big fan. We actually have one in our neighborhood, and we just had a homeowners associated meeting, and there wasn't great reviews from it. So I think it is worth taking a look at. I know I was reading an article, and Hillburyport actually has them in their town, but they did, as you mentioned, they installed the shields, I guess, so that's probably a viable option to help,
It's a big help.
yeah, with the glare. So, yeah, it'd be great to have everybody at the table and to discuss it as a town instead of in their own little group, so.
If I could just comment on one thing you said, Stephen, what you said too, Gary, about that now the selectmen have this policy that you folks are now starting to, which is wonderful. I would suggest that somehow the town planner, excuse me, who really, in terms of anything that has to do with the built environment, whether it's lighting, whether it's roads, whether it's curbing, whether it's sidewalks, whether it's parks, he is your person that really has his hand on the pulse of everything and knows the different disciplines and how they work together and don't work together. And I would strongly urge you to somehow coordinate with him. I know he's already flat out, and I don't know how we do that, but he as the town planner is really,
I meet with him quite regularly.
there you go. There you go. But to officially make that somehow happen, because he would have he understands all the different departments and how the jobs work and don't work.
Rob, in one of your emails, I'm sorry, Steve.
No,
you
no,
go.
yeah,
Okay.
good, thank you.
In one of your emails, did you actually suggest the shields and ask, you know, anything about those? No? Okay.
No, I'm not sure off the top of my head. That particular one I did not suggest.
No, okay. I just wondering. Mike?
Yeah, as, I just wanna add that the department heads and key staff do meet on a monthly basis. And it's a rather loose format on purpose. I bring to them information, you know, about budgeting and things that go on in the select board. And then they in turn we just go around the table and what's going on in your department. So it happens on the staff level. Whether or not, and Dave attends the meetings from the light department, Jim starts coming now, water, and Carol is there from the school. So even though, you know, we're all in our silos, I absolutely agree with you on that. You know, we do bust down the silos on a person-to-person level. And now whether Dave had mentioned specifically the LED lights, I can't recall. But everybody participates. It's a pretty lively meeting too. So we have breakfast and talk about what's going on in the town.
Well,
Also, as you mentioned, town charter, which I'm not so sure that I'm fully in agreement with, but I'm open-minded. And this board, as I believe your board, spent much time trying to fill out reports for Phil Trapani, who's heading up the strategic planning, and that is part of that. So it's not like nothing has been done there. We are going through that exercise and putting dates and that to it. And, you know, some of the things that our chair gave to me to fill out were not quite up my avenue, but I did my best to fill them out, and pass them on into this board, and to be open-minded about everything, so.
So is the town charter an actual line item in there that's being pursued?
I don't, it's a line item. I'm not so sure about
It's a point.
how,
you know.
yeah.
It's a point, but it's,
The problem is, if
discussion.
I could comment on
Yes,
that.
sir.
Let's go back a little bit. When you say silos, right, each board is set up and has authority based on a statute.
Mhm.
Right? You have your statute,
Mhm.
Peter has his statute, you know, and various boards. So I'm a little bit disappointed, and to be honest, totally honest, that we made a decision on something with not getting all of the information. You know, I think in defense of the light department, they had a public hearing, it was on their agenda, and they were on our agenda. So I'm a little disappointed that after the fact, we're 25% into this project, in which we've already given approval to, and expended money and made commitments, financial commitments, and it has to be stopped. I'm a little upset about that. Needless to say that, you know, communication could be much better. I totally agree. You know, unless we have a situation where a lot of these boards are appointed by a strong town manager, situation, you know, I think you're still gonna have these types of silos, right? And see these types of communication problems. We try our very, very best. You know, and again, there's multiple boards that could say, hey, look, this is our area, you know, go away. I don't know if that's been the response. I hope it hasn't been the total response from the light department, but I just find I'm just disappointed that we're in the situation we're in. Where do we go from here? I think we gotta get everybody together to hash this thing out. Because we have financial commitments and grant commitments that we've made, which could cost us in the end. So that's the scary part.
Well, the financial commitments, and I know there are some towns right now that are actually filing lawsuits.
Mhm. Again, we weren't armed with all of the information, to be
Correct.
honest. So, in that regard, but I don't, as far as the charter goes, it's about energy and getting enough people together
I know.
to put the energy and the time into it. Now, we had a government study / a group many years ago.
The DOR
Multiple
report,
ones.
that final DOR report?
No, even before that.
Oh, no, I know
When I
there's-
first was on FinCom, we had a government study group that was meeting to change things, and we just ran out of gas.
I
It's
think there
just
were
a
like
daunting task.
Well, there were seven reports that have been done, and now there's the Phil Trapani report, for lack of a better term, I don't know what that's being called, that's being done.
What's the
But
strategic plan?
strategic plan. But the DOR report, its conclusion was very clear, very clear. It said it was all right there in that report.
But there was an
Town
actual
charter.
commission, there was actual
Town-
people
town
appointed.
charter.
And Tilly was around, I'm sure. And I'm going back, the 10 years that I've been in town, 11 years now, we had actual people doing this, looking into it, having meetings. And you know what? It's such a daunting task.
I know.
That, you know, you really need people with the energy that's gonna stick to it. And it's a 2 to 3 year process.
I know.
And you know what? It can divide the town too, and I think some of that started to come up too, where, you know, there's some tough decisions that have to be made. And that they're, you know, not everybody's gonna be in favor of it.
Totally agree, totally agree.
Staying on point, I also want to make another point is, you know, so the light department, you know, did come in and present to us. It was more from a budgetary, I think, standpoint, that, you know, talk to us about, you know, the savings, you know, by putting in LED lights, and, you know, why we should go that route, you know. As far as, you know, all the other information that you're saying that they left out, right? I think I somewhat think it's in the eye of the beholder whether they did leave that out or not. Okay, because I think they came before us to talk to us about, hey, you know what? If we go this route, it is our opinion. Okay, and being in their boat, right? This was their opinion that this was the best lighting, you know, to put in. It was going to save the town 25% on the cost. Okay, and LED lighting, we're going down the green road. So you know, and again, not saying anything that anybody should have been here, but again, it is, it's a posted meeting, okay? And yes, they did avoid talking about these AMA reports, okay? Whether they felt it was, important or not, okay, remains, that's the eye of the beholder. But just to be fair, okay, everybody on this board could have asked questions, okay?
But how would
Outside
you-
people could have asked questions.
How would you know? How would you ever
Understood,
know?
understood, I get it, but again, I wanna be fair, okay, that it is a posted meeting, and then anybody could have come up with a pile of paperwork this high, right?
Yeah.
And said, hey, look at this pile of paperwork, it says these things aren't good, right? So, again, I just wanna be fair, because they are not here, okay, to counter, okay, what we're talking about. They will on the 11th, okay, but the point, well taken, right? So, Doug, why don't we go this side?
Just to play devil's advocate, I believe that the light department has specifications that they have to follow for roadway lighting, and I can't believe that they would not follow those specifications. So, I mean, we have a report. I've never seen the AMA report, so I don't know. I have never heard anything. We have an LED light outside our house. It's not very bright at all, but it lights up. So, aside from any AMA report, I'm quite certain that the light department is following all the specifications that they're required to follow to do roadway lighting.
The roadway lighting, there is no specification standard. The roadway lighting comes with a series of recommendations from certain institutions, and for example, the EIS, the Electrical Institute Society, which creates one of their major, they just came out with the 10th edition, which is their latest edition. And their recommendations, their guidelines, and there's a whole realm there's a chapter introduced in there called design. Design, the chapter on design opens up for the electrical engineers to start to address these issues. These issues aren't, look at Boxford. These aren't national, federal standards. Boxford doesn't even light their roads. If they can do that, then we must be able to have some choices also. And again, I just want to come back to the AMA report. This isn't my report. This is a serious issue about potential harmful issues with health. You guys now have the report. I strongly recommend you read it. It's a health issue. This isn't about it's a potential health issue and then a glare issue.
Where I stop with that is that it's an opinion.
It's a professional opinion.
That is
It's
correct.
not- well, let me finish. It's a professional opinion. If there was something that was duly known to be wrong with the street lightings, I mean, good, let's ban all these LED headlights that blind the heck out of you. Okay? So what I'm saying to you is that it's an opinion by the American Medical Association. Science is not infallible. So we think there may be, or they think there may be potential health hazards, but not having an appearance by somebody that can delve into these things and explain it in layman's language, then
The AMA report is readily accessible in terms of readability, so I strongly recommend you read it. It's based on science.
Did you just give it to Mike?
Yeah.
It's based on science.
tomorrow.
And with all due respect, I just need to say, this is exactly the same argument that was used with, and it's a different level of issue, but there's a health issue that's the common denominator. That's the argument that the tobacco industry used. That's the argument that has been used with global warming. It's the argument that science is not necessarily correct. The body of evidence strongly suggests science will never say it's a fact unless they can see it. Well, that's the whole point of science. You can't see it happening. It's all based on theory. It's all based on an imponderance of evidence that mounts up over time. So all I'm saying is the AMA report is saying this. I would rather err on the side of caution than not. And the other part that I would say to that is when you start digging in to the LED industry is going to, I think it's by 2030, they're anticipating over 95% of all lighting in the country will be LED. There is a huge business operation taking place. The AMA doesn't have any financial interest in their reasoning. It's only health.
Right. As I said, I'm just playing devil's advocate to it.
And I'm responding to the devil's advocate.
Well played.
We're gonna go over this on the 11th, right?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I ask, can we just coordinate planning board and
Yep.
light department and us to have this discussion?
Yeah, and
We're
I
getting
think,
too far into the weeds.
Good point, I was just responding.
and that, I was gonna give it, I know Steve had one more question, and then we're gonna, leave it at that, okay? Go ahead, Steve, because we have to move on.
Yes, so I just wanted to remind everyone that we had the meeting with the light department. I think, I recall that I was asking them about the LEDs. I don't want you guys to think that we were just there for the financial end of it, so I asked them, I told them about the one in our neighborhood.
What'd they say?
I don't know, I'd have to go back to the minutes, but I think the reason why I didn't vote for the grant was because there really wasn't a presentation done for us. It was kind of done in a hurry. From what I understand, the grant had to be approved like the next day. So we really didn't get a presentation from the financial aspects of it either. It was expressed to us about the savings, and it was a win-win, and it was a no-brainer, but I had asked, that we hold off, but that was just one person's opinion on the board.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Gentlemen, thank you for attending tonight, we really appreciate it, we'll see you
Thank
on
you
the
a lot.
11th, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so I think, one of our functions here, in town as selectmen is to, listen, to our citizens in town. And, for the past couple of years, I have been listening to, mostly parents regarding, the field situation, around West Street and frustration around, conditions and I guess that some of the hazards that are popping up, on West Street as well. So, I wanted to start, a discussion, okay, just like we had mentioned with, Mr. Hoover, is, to start, a discussion within different boards to find solutions to improve West Street, because at this point in time, what really drove me is that this season, we had a number of kids that were on West Street fields that were injured in two, that I've heard of pretty seriously. And it was basically due to some of the wavering of the fields, not level, at certain spots. The grounds have become very hard, with as kids fall, they've been getting injured more and more. But it's more of I think the fields personally need a break. As we had Pembroke, fields that were growing and everything, there was nothing being done on Pembroke, so everything went to West Street, and they got a lot of overuse. Okay, and at this point in time, I don't want that also to happen, to other fields either. So what I wanted to do is to start some discussions, and there's a lot of discussion to be had around the different fields that we have here in Georgetown and how we can maximize the use of all these fields, okay, to make sure everyone's playing on a very safe turf, that kids aren't getting hurt the way they have this year. I don't know if we have any GAA members. I've been talking to some folks from the GAA who expressed some concerns over that. So just to preface it, I invited Parks and Rec here tonight. I've invited Conservation and also the Water Department. Unfortunately, Conservation and Water could not make it, and I see a number of Parks and Rec folks in here, which I invite you guys or people to come up. I don't know. It's all guys, but we have I have some thoughts in my mind around we have fields at West Street, we have Pembroke, we have some other fields, but we also have East Main Street, okay? And I think East Main Street is going to become an important spot, okay, if we decide that we want to move forward and can somehow develop West Street. So, we have some folks here from Parks and Rec, and I'd like to open up discussion around, how we can make this happen. and, you know, kind of an update on certain areas, and maybe come up with a, you know, temporary suggestion as far as how we move forward. You know, we do have, Mike, when are the other two boards planning on being here? You know, and by the way, the water department had another meeting tonight, so they didn't blow it off. They just had their own meeting tonight.
At our next, 2 weeks from today.
So 2 weeks from today. So if, you know, you guys can make it, great. If not, no worries, you're here tonight. But, so welcome, gentlemen. If you guys first can introduce yourselves for everybody at home.
Jim Demento, Chairman of the Park and Rec.
Dave Shower.
Al Kitchen.
Okay. So again, thank you for attending, gentlemen, tonight. We appreciate you taking some time out of your night. So anyway, let me first start. You know, first of all, thoughts about what I just said. Okay, as far as West Street and you know, some of the issues going on down there.
West Street is basically 20 years ago, 22 years ago. A few of us guys got in there and increased it from 1 field to 3 fields. And you can't, we put loom down there, but there's only about 2 to 3 inches of loom in those fields, and the rocks keep coming up. Years ago, the coaches, we'd have buckets there, and the coaches would take the buckets and walk around the field and pick up the rocks. Life has changed now. Coach won't do that. It's not, he's a coach.
We've also run out of loom. We used to be able to take loom that we had piled on site and field dress the fields to get the high and low spots as they came up.
The high and low spots you're talking about are on field number 1. This is when the water department came in, ripped up our irrigation, and never just bulldozed the field. Never raked it out or anything.
Mhm.
Field number 1, field number 2, and field number 3 were graded pretty good all the time. Okay, they never had water spots in them. Now they have water spots in them. Field number 1 down, if you're looking at the field on the right-hand side of it. Our main problem up there is we can't do anything to it. And I understand that.
So when you say can't do it,
Jim,
Well,
Jim,
yeah.
no, you tell them what you mean by
Let
don't
me
can't.
talk.
Yeah.
we can't put any fertilizer up there, okay? I can't see why we can't put an organic fertilizer up there, but they say no, so okay. I just paid an $8,300 water bill for up there. But 95% of the water goes in and goes right down back into their system. Okay, but they got a thing on there. They want their permit for their new tank up there. They don't want to pay for it. Then why should a Park and Rec have to pay for the water? You know, all of these boards. I've been in town 48 years, and all of these boards don't work together. None of them do. Okay, the best board we got in here is Peter Durkee. You call him up. We had trees fall down on East Main Street. Called him up. He went down there the next day, took them down. They're gone. Didn't cost anybody. You know, he has the guy. But West Street, you're never going to do anything with it. I took those fields back over. This will be the second summer because the GAA did nothing. Nothing. And we were getting all sorts of complaints. And I said, I'll take them back over, but it's my call. I don't want no shit from people.
Yep.
Excuse my language, everybody. And the first last summer they were better, and this summer they were pretty good. You got grass up there, and next summer they'll be better. You got a lot of clover up there.
Yep.
Okay, they'll be better, but you can't work these fields without giving a field a rest.
Exactly, and I can't agree more.
Okay?
I can't agree
We
more.
have a beautiful field sitting down on East Main Street
Exactly. Yep.
that should be opened,
Yep.
okay? I've just spent $400 to fertilize it.
You did?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean the Park and Rec.
Because you can do that down there. You, have
You
no
can do that down there. But there should be no reason why that field should be open and they can't be using that field.
Yep. Well, let me stop you right there. All right. So that's partly, you know. And by the way, again, I did call water and conservation again. They'll be here
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
27th because I understand your
Yep.
concerns, right? So to me, in my head, right, that should be the plan, right? Because to your point, okay, West Street needs a break, okay, And just like, you know, Pembroke Fields came out beautifully, okay? But even those, we don't want them overused because then they'll just end up dirt, you know, like every other field. So now we've spent as a town, you know, some pretty decent money on East Main Street, okay? Unfortunately, they, correct me if I'm wrong, they got no use, you know,
None.
whatsoever this year. So I would like to push to a point where I don't know where we are with bylaws and everything else, but we need to open that place up, all right? And start utilizing the field, start working with the GAA, okay, to say, okay, guys, you know, we're going from a West Street model to, let's start using the East Street.
Julia
East Main
Rec
Street.
she set up a good thing where the people, they all notify her, she has all, what fields are being used, she notifies the police department, everything, that's set up, but it's just that, I go up West Street at least, say 3 times a day. And mainly at night, I go up there because they won't lock the gate. You don't lock the gate, people get in there, they break bottles, they sit there and drink, and they throw the bottles on the field.
That's at West Street?
Yes, because there's no, it's like an open place, unless they lock the gate. They
Yep.
lock the gate, there's no problems.
Yep.
Okay, we used to have all sorts of vandalism up there. We don't have it anymore because the gates are locked. You know what I mean? And it just, I've asked the GAA to come to a park and rec meeting at least, 6 or 7 times? They don't show up, okay? They don't care because everybody has their own little domain. It's the GAA, it's the GAA basketball, it's the park and rec. Everybody has it, and nobody wants to get together, and that's the biggest problem.
So, yeah, one other thing on the East Main Street, as-built, because they did the first phase is to create as-built drawings, give to the town manager, which he has today. Now we have to go back, and then we have to go back to the planning board, hire an engineer to do a survey of the area, make a checklist of things that could be done for liability before it's open. And that's the status of where we are at on that.
On East Main Street?
On East Main Street. So the as-bills are done, town manager has them.
Town planner.
I'm sorry, and I'll make that mistake again, so catch me. Town planner has them, and
Just call him the mayor for short.
now, and the only other comment I can make on Dave's is, you can't bring material up to West Street.
Yeah.
And I did attempt to go to the water department, and I got a set of conditions to bring material up there. I got it last year, and I'll send you the list of and I tried for months trying to find someone who would get us, if you leave, talks about VOCs and there's a list of things there. It's very difficult to bring material up there, but it can be done, but no one's gonna do it until the winter. They're not gonna, every 50 yards has to be inspected, and the inspection report is done by the University of Mass like this. So even if we wanted to field dress the fields, because we don't have any loam, it's a lot of work.
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take, so when we discussed it, we said, we're too busy, we just can't do that this year.
Yeah.
You know, but we'd also have to get buy-in from the, certain groups, but it's really considered routine maintenance. We've been field dressing those fields up until about 15 years ago when we ran out of loam. So you talk about the peaks and valleys get worse every year because there's no material to put down on. You get a little patch, you get a little puddle, you used to be able to put a little material down and smooth it out a little bit. That hasn't happened in 10 or 15 years.
So for folks out, you know, in Georgetown that aren't familiar, so West Street, you can't put down anything you want to on
Can't
the
put down
fields,
anything.
you know, and you know because of water
Wellheads.
table,
Can I
right?
respond to that?
And in the wells and everything else. Hold on, Gary.
Okay.
So, you know, it's been discussed about what may or may not be able to be put on the fields. And agreeably, I mean, we have to be very careful,
Sure.
you know, there, right? Because we can go into our water system. But I also feel in talking to the people I have that this was an effort, as you said, there was an effort, you know, that was put out. And I think that the effort was going well, all right, and then the communication stopped, okay, just like that. And I
What communication?
the communication between the water department and Parks and Rec. There has been discussions in the past, yes?
Yeah, so a couple of months ago,
So-
we're interfacing, but we couldn't find anybody that would in the middle, this is in the summer, this is the summer. Say, okay, I want you to take 50 yards and make 5 piles of 50 yards of loam, and we're gonna go in and test it, and you're gonna leave it there until we test it, and then when it gets approved, you're gonna bring it to Georgetown and drop it off. I mean, they might do it now because there's no business in loam, but they weren't doing it in the middle of the season. And every time, a lot of those people didn't want to do the test because they knew they wouldn't pass. Actually, they don't want good loam because it has too much of organics in it. They actually want a special breed of loam. It's actually, if you look at the list of stuff they send me, it's a tough list.
Yeah.
I gave the conservation committee a whole stack of stuff on, from the breweries. It's all the.
Okay, that's what I wanted to respond with.
Yeah, the stuff that's left from the beer and stuff.
Yep.
And, what's the kid that's in charge of it?
There was, I don't know, got it or?
Oh,
Steve, is this?
Steve. Steve said it looks good.
Yep.
That was a year ago.
But see, what happened after? That's my problem with, as we talk about. We heard it from Rob, okay, before you. I've already heard it from you, Dave. Right? Is communication.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
What happened after that year? I mean, what did anything
No, I
happen?
mean, I had a discussion. They were concerned about yeast. I mean, so every plus is a minus. On that, they weren't going to take a chance on the potential.
They're worried more about the turtle,
Yes.
okay,
Oh, yeah,
up
sure.
there, but your kid can fall and rip up his leg,
I know, right?
okay, over a stupid turtle.
And we had a much more severe injury than that.
Well, my two daughters played soccer. My daughter, lost because of injury on a turf field.
Yeah.
So it's just not the fields. It's a tough sport.
Yeah. Well, but when you look at fields, they should have a safe play to play. And it should. Listen, you can get her. I can get her going down these stairs, right? Anybody can get hurt at any time. That aside, let's not increase the probability of
Right.
that by having potholes that they're running in, and then they have to go up to the regular turf, right? So before Gary explodes, Gary, do you have a statement?
Just maybe clear up, let me first say, I walked the fields today. They're in far better shape than they were 25 years ago when my kids played there, let me tell you that. So I don't know if we're raising a bunch of wimps. Call me that if you want, but
I think so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not.
Normally
Normally, I would say yes, but I mean, when you
Let
have
me-
peaks
let-
and valleys,
okay,
no.
let-
I mean,
let
that's
me-
not the
Let
case.
me get to where I was going. There has been, like you've got here, some things on community preservation. There's been a
Yes.
lot done. The parking, that's one thing that's increased tremendously.
Mhm.
So they've been doing a lot of hard work, and as we've said before, they're volunteers, and I thank them for their work. And they did. They brought up last year at community preservation, and I can't remember whether this is from last year that just got handed to me. Did we move something forward? to
No,
do
no,
something?
I withdrew it because I couldn't get an answer from
Well,
the.
it was also, I think, timing. It was a timing, but the thoughts are there, and I don't think that they've just got lost. It's just you run out of time on things. So where you're coming from, I think, is a great thing. Yeah, we need to get plans, but there has been a lot of work down
Well,
there at West Street.
Yeah,
it's a completely different looking place than it was 25
But look,
years ago.
look, gentlemen, you need
So
to have
it's-
you need to have a vision, right?
Yeah.
And what the vision becomes a plan, okay?
You're right.
What the plan becomes discussion, right? And discussion on how to implement, right?
Right.
And
But-
how do we get there, okay, as a town is my problem.
When I took-
And
when-
hold on. So as we do that, all right, and we have that vision on what we want to do, okay, we have it is a lot of work. I echo what Gary says. It is a lot of work, right? But I also think that if people come together, okay, and we voice our concerns, okay, about the work, the money, and everything else. At least we lay it on the table, and then maybe we assign certain things, or we ask the right questions. Okay, and those questions become answers. Okay, and then we take those answers, and again, we implement, right? But I just don't. Listen. When I became a selectman, all right, I thought one of the major issues in this town was communication. Okay, and I still find that communication is the underlying issue. All right. We saw it. What Rob Hoover, who was just here, that could have been taken care of months ago if we had good communication. All right. So the point again, I don't want anybody whether it's you guys or the boards that are coming after you, there's no light above you, all right? There's no finger pointing, okay? This is an effort, okay, to come up with a plan, right? We owe our citizens a plan.
You're right.
Okay, to get these fields where they need to be, so our kids are running on these fields and being kids safely, okay? And, you know, if we come together, the water department is not gonna tell me there is nothing that can be put down, all right? I refuse to believe that, all right? There has to be something there, okay? That we can come together and come to a solution. For conservation, to your point, I echo that as well, all right? Our kids are more important than some turtles, all right? And I want the turtles to feel free to roam around, right? I'm not saying we should run all over them either, right? But let's stick to the rules. They'll have plenty of room. They can live and be happy, right? And they can mate all they want. They can lay all the eggs they want and do all that stuff.
Exactly, but the turtles are worth, I mean, we have to close the fields down between time, so.
Yes.
And that actually.
But if we can work around those parameters, then at least we know what the parameters are.
See, the problem is people don't realize what we can't do. There's no way you're gonna get herbicides. There's no way you're gonna get grass control. I mean, I think there's no way you're gonna rip up a field and put down a new field. And George, the one thing you might be able to do is field dress. Over time, the field will level out, and you'll have clover and you'll have sprinkler system, and that's really, you know. I think that's the only thing that even the conservation. When I was talking to Steve, he said, "Well, if you only do a little bit a year, and you get the highs over the time, that will be loan." But I don't see any other choice. I think you're gonna have different groups fighting you when you start saying, "I want to rip out a field. I want to put 4 inches of loam down." It's not gonna happen.
It'd be.
You got to go to national heritage.
I have it in an account, $11,000, left over from the.
Which is what I handed out, gentlemen, for you.
Yeah,
Yep.
$11,000. I was going to use that money to redo field number 3. Start with 3 and move up. They were going to come in and do the whole thing for, I think it was $3,800 a field.
Okay, great. That would take how long, by the way, Dave?
One season of field.
Really?
Okay, but this was the stuff from that everybody's using from the
Brewery.
from the
Organic
brewery.
tea or the brewery.
Yeah,
Brewery, yeah.
never got an answer back from Steve. Okay, and I'm a busy person. I mean, you just got
Everybody is, no doubt.
you just got so much time.
Sure.
Okay, and I don't kiss anybody's ass. If he doesn't want to talk to me, fine. He doesn't have to talk to me about it. But he's being paid. He's being paid to talk to me. I pay my taxes. You pay your taxes. He's being paid until somebody tells somebody's people, you do your job. If the Park and Rec contacts you, I want you to be at that meeting for them. I want you to tell the Park and Rec why they can't do it. Not
Well, and again, this is what this effort's going to be about.
Yeah, it should be.
And we have to figure out how
Rob
we do it.
Hoover's benefit. So many times I get people say, "You got to do this. You got to do this," and I have to tell them, "No. You're paid. You're going to do it." Because they start to forget between Rob Hoover and me and Dave, we don't get paid to do this, and they're there Monday through Friday getting paid, Monday through Thursday getting paid. So I mean, like I said, the support has not been.
Yep.
It's been good, and there's different boards, but there's every once in a while they have to be reminded.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, can I-
Yes,
can I
Mr.
ask-
Surface.
All right, so, a couple of things. A, those people report to a board above them. So they do their job based on what their board tells them. So in that regard, you should talk board to board, chairman to chairman, and maybe you'll get some better results, number one. Number two is, what's the delay on East Main Street? Enlighten me, because I can remember 4 or 5 years ago, Lou Mamelet's standing here saying, it's gonna be done by Thanksgiving. That was 3 or 4 Thanksgivings ago.
All right, so
Where are we? Why the
go along with
delay?
you. You are 100% right.
Wow.
So, we got the money to do what we consider the next phase, which was the skateboard park. It went out to bid. It was a couple $100,000 more than we had.
Okay.
So then it became, well, we can't do this. We have this money, so we had to reapply it in doing the field, the fence around the field, the different things. We went to put electricity in. Electricity was $75,000 from the which we couldn't afford. So then we had a sprinkler system built. We had grass irons. We had to put a $15,000 generator for the next couple of years because we can't afford to put with the money we had. We decided if we're going to open up the park, there's a section of we had 80% of the park the trees cut down, we had 20% that weren't. We didn't wanna open the park and then have to close it, bring in all this major equipment again to clear the 20%. So we cleared the 20%. We're doing some work at the entrance, and in order to open the park, the steps were, you do the as-built, you get the as-built drawing done, you go to the, and first of all, these fields weren't supposed to be used till next spring. So
That was my question.
we were no emphasis right now of getting it done this fall. It was to get it done this fall, so the fields are ready for the
Spring coming up, 18.
And they will, because right now we have the as-bills, we have to go back to the planning board. They will hire a engineer to go through and write a list of things, a knockoff list. And we'll have to knock those things off and get the park open in the spring.
So my next comment.
I'm sorry, I wanna make sure I heard that right. It will, in the spring.
Yes.
Don't hold your breath.
Well, like I say, no, I say the knockoff list. If the knockoff list is fill in the pond, no, it's not gonna, but, I mean, hopefully the knockoff list, and I think it will. I think the town planner or manager? Town planner's is been very supportive, and I think we'll get what has to be done.
All right, so my next comment is, we've been using these West Street fields, and that's not what those fields are designed for. Based on what I've read from George, an email that George had sent out, and again, I'm a novice at this stuff, but that land that we're using there is really not designed to be athletic fields, let's face it. So, the question I would have is, or the comment, or maybe we can look into this, are there enough room and fields to use East Main Street and completely abandon West Street and just get out of the situation?
And those fields were built for soccer fields, okay? They used to have field number 1, 2, and 3.
But that's not my question, Dave. My question is this. If we just said, as a town, we're not gonna invest any more money in West Street, and let the water department keep their fields, and use them what they're originally intended for, that space, that open space, the way it drains, and reading some of the things that George sent, they really weren't designed to be athletic fields. We did it because that's all the room we had. Now we have another major installation, meaning East Main Street. Can East Main Street handle
No, I
what
don't
goes
think it
on at
can.
West Street? That's my question.
I don't think it can.
East,
No way.
No?
no, East Main Street is good for 1 full soccer field or 2 small soccer fields, or they wanna move the lacrosse down there.
Okay.
Okay, and make that the lacrosse, and it can hold 2 lacrosse fields.
Right. And we added more space at Pembroke, right? Additional fields at
Yeah,
Pembroke.
we have-
So I think the long-term solution is to completely abandon West Street. But get out of there.
And the only way you're gonna do that is you're gonna have to take the top field at the high school and make it 1 field.
Well, then maybe we should look into that.
Well, there is-
We're wasting
that's-
all this money, all this frustration, all this money is going into a field and an area that's not designed to be
Well,
intentioned to
we
be a
only
soccer field.
spent $14,000 for that field last year.
No, but Steve,
No,
you
no,
don't
no,
answer
but I'm
my-
just saying, don't say a lot of money. I imagine the
No,
G,
last year, I'm talking over the last 25
Oh, yeah.
years. How much money have you put into these fields?
Well,
When
up
there's maybe
to,
a better solution.
there's not a lot of money going into those. The most money that went into those fields is I think it was $80,000 to do that parking lot.
Right.
That was the most money that's gone
But I don't think
into
I
those.
don't think you're listening to what I'm
I'm
saying.
listening to what you're saying, but
Find another solution instead of pouring bad money into West Street. That's not what they were designed for.
Weren't they designed to rotate?
No, the land was designed to be a filtering
the
system.
fields.
And I'm going with some of the
Fields were
expert
designed
stuff
to
that I've
rotate.
read.
Right, but the water department basically said, because we were strapped, you can use
Right.
these fields,
Right,
and
Right.
as long as you don't do A, B, and C.
right.
And we
so,
haven't
you know
done
what?
A-
That's not the best solution for what we need.
No.
For what we need is, if we need to grab that other field up at the high school, why are we throwing good money after bad? Let's come up with a permanent solution and completely abandon West Street. Done.
It's a
That-
nice open space right now, I mean.
But yeah, but it was never designed to be an athletic field. It was designed to be a filtering open space. And again, I'm not an expert on this.
Now, being a park and rec, I'm saying, I can see you saying, okay, don't keep those as recreational fields. But it's nice that you have a neighborhood place you can go in with your kids. And the problem we have in Georgetown, you can't go and say, let's go play baseball down in American Legion, because you can't be on those fields. Or let's go hit the soccer ball down on West Street. We don't have any fields that just people can just do.
That's another whole situation.
Not organized.
Jim. That's a
I'm just-
whole nother.
That on that side of
you
town,
know.
where there's always been a
Right.
need for having that facility, so
Right.
people can down there and use it as.
Right. And you know what? That may be the soft use.
Yeah,
but
just-
right now, we're
right.
using the hard use
Right.
on a soft use facility.
I can agree with that.
So let's look into abandoning West Street completely and coming up with another solution.
And what does West Street become though, Dave?
what it was originally
just
intended for,
has to-
George, I mean,
Just a field.
Mr.
People go
Chairman, if you
down
let
and-
George speak for 2
Yes, I was-
seconds.
yes, I
Let's-
was
yeah,
gonna say.
let George speak.
Hold on, okay, Mr. Commissioner, please.
So I think back in the late seventies, when the fields went in, our water quality was excellent. People used to come up and take our fill up their bottles of water and take it home with them from, with a lot of camps around here. Situation started deteriorating in the nineties, and that's when the water treatment plant come in. We're still pulling up a lot of iron and manganese, and so if you complain about your water quality, it hasn't been improving. So we need to do everything we can to preserve our well fields. It's the water department's facing enormous pressure from the DEP, which has oversight over the zone, what they call Zone 1 areas, and some of the field is within the Zone 1. If they knew that some of the activities that have been going on over the years that about placing loam, they might be finding the town.
We only
But
place
I,
loam local.
so I offered some names and addresses to talk to them, because there's permits to go through. And the water department is gonna start the process where we're gonna get our next 20-year withdrawal permits Thursday at a meeting, which I'm attending at the National Wildlife Refuge. So the DEP might ask for offsets. What are you gonna do to lessen your withdrawals? What are you gonna do to improve your water quality? I think the town is still under a 2011 enforcement order over smell and aesthetic values. So I just don't think we should make light of how sensitive an area that is, for our water supply. I'm with the Parker River Clean Water Association. We're not just about turtles. We have water quality testing tomorrow in 3 sites in Georgetown that we've been doing for 15 years. We do a lot of other activities besides turtles, and so
George, can you just comment though on those fields in particular and the way they drain? Because I know that email you sent out is the use for
It's
those.
called, it's an aquifer, it's a recharge area, so.
Right.
I mean, it's gravelly, it's sandy, it's stony, and that's excellent aquifer. That water will filter down and recharge to our wells, which are only like 50 feet underground. And so, the better we serve that area, I don't know if our water quality improve, if we need a new treatment plant. Some of the hydraulic changes the water department is coming up with might improve a little bit, but we're at a critical point now. We have to address our water quality concerns in town and support the water department, and not bash them. And the Concom, I think the only reason the Concom is involved because they only have jurisdiction with 100 feet of a wetland. I think it has to do with an order of conditions that the Park and Rec have at East Main Street. They had to get creative because there wasn't a lot of mitigation they could do at East Main Street. So they said, well, can you for 2 hours a night in June, can you cease activities from 6:30 to 8:30? And that seemed agreeable.
It is, and actually they show there's a lot of nesting at those hours, so
Yes.
it actually works out that it works for everybody, because once we get East Main Street up, we had to tell people, first year we had a problem because people weren't abiding by those rules. But the years subsequently they have, and that is a highly used month, and we hopefully we'll be in a situation where we can change it.
Again,
all.
I think we had too specific. My point was that those fields at West Street, that land was never intended 35 years
It
ago
was bought in the
to
60s.
be an athletic field. Let's find another solution in town.
Well, it would not.
It's been longer than
What was it?
35
It
years.
was
40 years, 50 years.
It was intended to be temporary until we found another solution.
bingo.
And we
We
had,
ha-
yeah.
And
And I'm telling you,
the town's never
Right.
put up money to buy, your fields. I mean,
Right.
when the golf course went bankrupt, they should have bought the golf.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother.
There's only
No,
two
but I'm
viable
just saying
Right.
those are the only flat places
So
in
I'm
Georgetown.
gonna say there's
basically.
only two viable solutions. One is you spend about $1 million and you crown the field at the top field to make it one. That's just $1 million to make it all level, because you got a 4 feet grade between field one and field two.
Where's this?
The high school. It's about $1 million to level that off. The only other piece of land that's big enough is on Martell Way, and you have to spend about 300,000 and about the same amount to do that. Those are the only two pieces of land left in town now that are viable options if you want to get rid of West Street and you want, now if you go to Martel Way, you're gonna have problems with the Blue Heron. There'll be people screaming about the Blue Heron down the end of the street. So, but I think, those are the two options that, and I've talked to people like Rob Hoover and Harry Locatelli, about different people about these, what are we gonna do about the future? We're gonna have a build out about a certain amount. Luckily, we have 12 or 13,000 build out, do they say? So what are we gonna be when we're there? What are we gonna have for fields at 13,000 people? Those are gonna be the two solutions we're gonna have to go to. And I think the most viable one is the high school. I mean, you couldn't remove that material, it's a soft shell with a front end loader, but now with these excavators, you can go through that with like butter. So when Gail was up there, they had looked at that project, and we had something, so I think if the town wants to look at 4 or 5 years out, it's gonna cost you $1 million to make one massive field up there.
Better double it, you're terrible at X.
No, but that was a quote, that was a quote they gave us, a verbal, it's gonna cost around $1 million. They didn't say $1 million, but.
I mean, again, I would say, the longer term solution is to look at abandoning West and come up with an alternative, because that land was never intended to be athletic fields.
Right.
And it will never be, no matter what you do to it.
And actually, Steve, you've been waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with David. I mean, if you look at it before we had East Main Street, before we redid the field for Pembroke, we made do with what we had, right? On what West
No
Street.
practices. There wasn't
Well,
one
let me-
practice for that whole year.
Let me finish though. But
Yep.
we made do with it, right?
Yeah.
So we now have these fields. Let's make do with what we have now. Let's plan what we want to do for the future, and let's let that space be what it was intended for. If you look at the regulations for that, everything that it says that we can't do, you can't herbicide, you can't fill, you can't water, you can't do this. It's always going to be an uphill battle.
100%.
It's always going to be an uphill battle. So why waste our time, to Dave's point? Why waste the town's money? Because
But it's
that's
gonna have
what
to
it's
be a
doing,
3 to
right?
5 year plan. There's no way that you're gonna say next year that field's closed, and you'll get the
No, I
GA
didn't,
here,
I
and
didn't
they won't
suggest
be
that.
able
I
to.
suggest we need a long-term
We need- yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
Because
Get out of it.
everybody, we have to come also to grips with. I hope everyone recognizing how much. At one point in time, there could be 3 to 4 games going on West Street at once. Okay, Pembroke is one field, one. That's it. We have, East Main Street that can be 1, maybe 2. All right. So you combine those with 3 fields, all are basically at what West Street offers. Okay.
We
So
play
if
up
we
in the high school as well,
it-
though, right? At the top.
I
field,
have
that's
a little bit of a
used.
problem with West, but yeah, it is used at times as well. But I have a problem
like
with
it.
the top because access to the top, is
It's actually, if you look up
it's pretty terrible.
but if you look at the plans that they had, you'd have a stadium, you'd have a track up there, which the town doesn't have, which would have a
People
track.
would
up
love.
there. Right, and there's plenty of room for parking and a street going up there. The grade is not that bad if you look at
No,
the.
so you can put a street up there
Oh, yeah, I mean, there is.
because right now we have grandparents that want to go see their grandkids.
I've seen
and-
people,
and-
they can't get emergency vehicles up there.
right. I mean, it's
No,
pretty bad.
But that is by far the easiest solution for this town, because you could have if you look at the original plans they had for there, they weren't that bad. We were talking about a turf field up there at that time, but you can put a grass field with a track, and I mean, it's really worth investigating, because it would allow us, at that point, I really believe you could get rid of West Street. 'Cause
All
you
right,
would have-
well, you know what? Great. I mean, this is what this was designed for. Is just to have discussion, right? And
How do we move
if
forward,
that's
Mr.
if
Chair,
that's
then?
the fact, then that's the thing. We have to
You have to
come
form
up
a
with plan.
committee like the turf committee, which was a 5-year committee that met, and we got that, it took us a lot of
to your
work.
point, we have to figure out the 3 to 5 plan, right? We can't just say, all right, West Street, we're done, and that's it. There's going to have to be a lot of use of that field moving forward. But again, my concern is, the kids playing on that, and what happened this year was unfortunate with some kids that we had a broken bone, with one child who just basically put their leg in one of those potholes, and that's it.
That happens.
So,
Well,
Gary, it doesn't really happen. If you come down on someone's foot, all right, that's you turn your ankle or whatever. If it's a pothole that really shouldn't be there, that's a different story.
Looked much better than it was,
But
like I said.
but you know what I like the feedback,
cars.
all right? Because again, this was what this was intended for, right? So, so yeah, I mean, to Steve's question is all right. You know what? Maybe that's what we have to do. We have to figure out, you know, what our next steps are. I'm sure we have to bring into school, right? You know, and figure out what might need to be done, how we're going to fund it, you know, things like that. We have to look at it as a solution, right? It's not like we're saying it today and that's what's going to happen.
A lot of people have brought it up, and I've had this conversation, and I hate to put them out here without name. Rob Hoover a couple years ago, you know, the top field is not maximized potential at the high school. But once again, it's a question of how you're going to pay for it. There's, but it seems like the best bang is land that we own. Then that would have to be maximized, but it's not close to being maximized. Its potential.
No,
You're gonna have a lot of, you're gonna have a lot of neighbors up in there that'll be awful mad
But you're not gonna
when you do this, and then because there's streets, High Street, is it?
Those are the details I think that we have to discuss.
But I'm just saying.
I think any solution, people are always.
You're not maximizing
there's
the
always someone
exterior
that might
area
be-
though. All you're doing is you're taking the area that and max. You're not expanding upon their borders at all.
I mean, I think we're getting too far.
Yeah, we're getting too far ahead.
So, if I may, sir, if you could identify yourself first, please.
Yeah, Jeff Moore, 373 Andover Street.
Hi, Jeff.
And the study that Jim's referring to was the Taking Pride in Georgetown Committee, which I was a member of. I forget, Jim, actually how many years ago that was at this point, but Heather Hartford had started that.
Yeah.
We did a preliminary study at the high school, and I think that's the study you're referring to.
That's that was part of it. There was a subsequent conversation after. But go ahead.
It was, and just recently, I was asked to request a preliminary project with the CPC for this very purpose of renovating that study, bringing it back up to speed, and taking a look at what can be done at that high school. That went to the CPC. It was denied on a preliminary basis, inappropriate use of funds or something along those lines. But what's changed in history, if you guys are aware of this, is that CPC funds can now be used on land that was not purchased with CPC money. So that's the big thing that's changed recently that wasn't in place the first time we looked at that or tried to seriously look at that project. And of course, that's how the turf got done, along with some substantial GAA contributions at the high school. So there are a lot of benefits to that, and one of the things, getting back to the use up there, and I'll move on, but it is not a change of use up there, which is interesting. Those are playing fields up there now. What Jim is talking about is really taking advantage of the space. There's some woods in there. So yes, there's some neighbors, but you know, that's the only space in town I can think of where you wouldn't actually be changing the use, as opposed to any place else you might be able to identify it, and you're going to get pushed back probably anywhere. So.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that we have that other property that the town owns now, and I know I've gotten emails, people ask me if we could put a field there, so there's options. I think we just have to discuss it as a group or committee.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, I think paramount to this though is to get those East Main Street fields up and running for springtime.
Yeah. Yes.
Paramount. I mean, that's a huge.
Yeah, it really is imperative, and what I'd like to see is not only there are people with the dog park. If I get another phone call, gentlemen, about the dog park, right, I'm gonna lose it. All right, because I don't know what to tell them. All right, people, every household has a dog that wants to go down to that one dog park. I'm telling you right now.
No reason why it can't be open.
People are foaming at the mouth about this.
You know,
and the dogs.
when people ask me, I tell them to call you people. I just call the selectmen. You know,
So that's how I'm getting the phone calls.
you know, when I say
number again?
The Georgetown bought that house over
I don't
here,
have a
right?
phone.
If somebody goes in and gets hurt, Georgetown insurance covers it, right? And why don't they cover down there? That's your land. I'm been told the insurance doesn't cover it until we go through all of this.
We just approved a tour to something on the rail trail.
Yeah.
And by the
I
way,
don't get it.
East Main Street is not a park. Right now, we're considering it a recreational facility.
Thank you.
Jim,
That's an important.
I also have another question, and then we'll actually move on. So I was sent an email, regarding the land at East Main Street. With I guess there was some discussions even around a basketball.
Yes, that's so. With this as-built, we're going to be finished with what we consider phase 1. Phase 2 was supposed to be a 100 car parking lot, a rain garden for the conservation, and a skateboard park.
So the skateboard park's still going in?
But it's still on the drawings. It's still designed.
I know
in
all
that-
the equipment's there. I mean,
It's still
hopefully that's
designed
still
in,
good, but
we also after building the parks, there's been a lot. The reason that 100 car parking lot was there was to get some grant money that's no longer available. So it's like, well, maybe we'll just make it a 40 car. I mean, it doesn't seem like 100 cars are going to be needed. Parking space is going to be needed there, and you could put 2 to 3 basketball courts in that place. But in order to do that, we got to go back to the planning board and present the changes and see if they agree. And they may not. They may limit the scope in some respect. So that's what they have. This is the first time they have heard of it.
What
And I
you're-
think we got an offer or some discussion from the Cam Coy Foundation.
Sure,
Yeah,
that-
yeah, and
that's what
we're the
actually
one that
helped
told
us.
him, we said, go get the money, we'll tell
Yeah,
you
which
where to
is-
put it,
Yeah.
and put it in.
Yeah, which is great.
Which would be great.
It
I
would
mean,
be great.
We really, that's one thing. I mean, I know we have ALP, but you know, it's
No,
it has
no.
its issues
So-
with it being a basketball court.
3 courts is a recreational area, which would be East Main Street. Someday we'll have American Legion will be a park, and you want to play basketball, you can just go there. It won't be like, you know, in the old days, you wanted to play sports, you just run down the park and you did it. It wasn't like it was leased out to a, and actually, that's what a park is for. You just go in, and hopefully we'll have recreational facilities like East Main Street and other places, and we'll have parks, and we'll be able to manage. But right now, all our parks are being used as recreational facilities.
And you know, again, we do have to caution that yes, I mean Pembroke looks fantastic. You know, we played on, you know, those fields. You know, we don't want them though overused.
If you don't give
right?
them a rest,
Because
you're gonna
that's
get.
the thing. I mean, it's we can't overload them either in response to what we're trying to accomplish. You know, in terms of progressing to other fields. So. All right, well, gentlemen, listen. Just to move on, I appreciate you guys coming tonight. Please, I mean, keep us posted on East Main Street because it's probably going to be a very big point to what we're trying to accomplish. Work with Mike, the town planner. You know, let's get it done.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Good, how are you? He's gonna help. You wanted me to give a update on the Mellow transfer station?
Oh, all right. It's because I'm trying to empty the room as.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to empty the room as much as I can. All right, Jeff, why don't you come on up then? Why don't we? You want to do that then?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Why don't we do that? Because it's on here. Certainly.
Yeah, well, actually, Jeff and I spoke on the phone today. He called me he was giving me an update on Mellow, and I
Okay.
told him, I said, well, I'm on the agenda to give the update, but
Okay,
I think
great.
who better than the ZBA chair, who's now hearing the case.
Yep.
Although because he's hearing the case, he's gotta just stick to the facts. You know, they're adjudicating the permit, special permit for them, so, but he can tell you what the board is doing, and actually, Jeff wanted some feedback from this board,
Okay.
So
as well.
maybe I can just give them a brief update. Where
Sure.
you guys, Jeff Moore, I'm the current chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And you guys are pretty familiar, I think, with the redevelopment project for Mellow. They have applied and we've opened a hearing for 4 different permits for them as a result of the expansion of the proposal over there. 2 of which have to do with water. One's a water resource district, construction in the water resource district. That's a special permit. Construction in the floodplain district, which is also a special permit for our board. The construction of more than one building on a lot requires a special permit from the board, and the biggest issue is expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use. And so we opened that hearing last Tuesday, and there were it was well attended. A lot of abutters attended. I think it was a very productive meeting. There was a lot of concerns that were raised by the abutters and members of the board, particularly regarding the expansion of the use over there. And I called Mike because we continued the hearing. I think it's December 5th, I believe, the first Tuesday of December. We will reopen or continue the hearing at that time. I felt at that, and I expressed this to the applicant, that I, as chairman, and I reviewed their applications ad nauseum. We talked a lot about what the proposal is over there. and I told him, I said, I feel like we're sort of missing something here because I can't personally figure out why the town wants to allow the expansion of a non-conforming use in a residential neighborhood, because there's a lot of issues that could potentially rise from that. The use itself, and this is all discussion that came up in the board, I'm not expressing anything new. The use itself is something that is, it generates noise, it generates potential odor, it generates trash, flying around the streets and so forth. But the biggest issue is traffic that we talked about. They created a laundry list of things that they want to come back to try and address some of these things. The biggest issue that we really talked about, though, was the things that can't really be mitigated or contained on the site, which is traffic on Route 133. A lot of folks expressed concern about getting in behind trucks, trying to make a left-hand turn in and out of that facility, or trucks kind of trying to come out of that facility making a right-hand turn. Route 133 is not designed to handle that kind of traffic. Trucks have to go into the oncoming lane. I know Chief is here. I don't know if you had, correct me on this. I'm no expert, but trucks have to come out and go into the oncoming lane in order to make that turn because there's some pretty large trucks going on. That's really it as far as where the hearing stands. They're going to come back and give us some more information, try to address some of these things. There was a traffic study that was done on their behalf as part of this. But I just wanted to relay to this board that there was a lot of concerns there. And I know that they've come and met with you. I know that the lease was negotiated last year, but then they've maybe come since that time and talked about this upgrade with you all. So in the interest of cross-board communication and trying to not to make decisions in the blind here, I called Mike and I said, could you get me up to speed on where the selectmen are on this? Because I want some feedback from the other boards because, like I said, I feel like personally I'm missing something. I don't know why or what's in the benefit of the town to allow the expansion from 50 tons a day of refuse to 300 tons a day. That's an awfully big expansion. And it's primarily, as stated by the applicant, going to be commercial expansion of tonnage. This isn't more residents coming in. There may be some. This is going to be large trucks coming in and out, and it's going to affect the traffic patterns in town, and it's going to affect all of us as residents, not just the abutters. So, and I sort of laid my cards on the table pretty early in this process with the applicant because I didn't want them going away with a laundry list of things. And my experience in holding meetings is when you continue, when you start giving people a list of things that, additional information that you seek, it can tend to become sort of a punch list. And the things that we were seeking weren't necessarily going to resolve some of the bigger problems that have been expressed. So that's where we are on this. There are 4 special permits that they're seeking. The hearing has been continued until early December, and I guess if anybody on this board has any opinions or questions or concerns, excuse me, I'd like to hear them, and I can certainly relay them to my board.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned one of the concerns, Jeff, is noise and odor. Isn't this supposed to be an enclosed facility?
Yeah, the project includes a construction of a new building that will be enclosed.
So why would odor and noise, there's already noise there. I'm not understanding why there would be more noise and certainly more odor. Why would there be more odor if it's an enclosed facility?
They're going to provide some additional information on that. There's concerns about the trash fermenting in the building. When you open the doors, you get a big waft of odor as opposed to things airing out continuously over time in an open building. I'm no expert on any of this. That was something that was brought up during the hearing. The noise primarily, the concerns that we heard had primarily due to backup alarms. A lot of those alarms are on the folks that are bringing trash into the facility. Most of the trash the vehicles that will use the building are construction vehicles or larger scale vehicles bringing in roll-off dumpsters and that kind of thing. Residential trash will be routed to another location where you can drop your trash off in a dumpster and so forth. That traffic, although can be a lot of volume particularly on weekends, is a bit quieter. It's the backup alarms and the dump trucks. You pull up in front of the building and you come around, you throw it in reverse, you now back into the building, dump your trash in the building, and then you pull away. So I know a lot of the concerns had to do with the backup alarm, but perhaps a lot of that can be mitigated, and they'll bring evidence to that fact at our hearing. I don't wanna opine too much on this, cause it's still an open hearing, so.
I'll go, well,
Yep, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I had attended the Board of Health meeting when Mr. Mello presented there, and there was an abutter there that had brought up odor. And Mr. Mello was talking about having the proper ventilation so that when they open the door, you wouldn't get that oof of odor.
I think
may
that is a
escape the
requirement.
building there. Yeah, so that's something that he's aware of and I guess is addressing. It's just a matter of what the proper ventilation would be. I mean, I have a lot of concerns about the project itself, primarily the increase of truck traffic from 95 to the dump.
Coming through town.
Excuse me, to the transfer station.
Right. From the 30,000-foot level, and I haven't heard all the facts yet, to me, things that occur on the site, you can tend, and well, Rod's not here anymore, but you can tend to try to mitigate those things. What can we condition to say, you know, the visual effects? That you got a big tall building going in, people are, you know, they don't want to have to see that. You know, the noise, can it be mitigated with a building? Can you put in screening, you know, to help with that? The traffic on Route 133 there, and the additional truck traffic through town is something that I think as a town, we need to consider, you know, what is it that we really want? Because as soon as they invest quite a bit of money here, we're gonna be living with this for a significant amount of time. And just in a nutshell, this is a non-conforming use in a residential neighborhood. This is zoned residential, it's not zoned for this use. In order for us to grant that use, we have to make a finding that the projected use of the change is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. And with any special permit, we have to make a finding that the use is essential and desirable to the public convenience and welfare, that the use will not overload any public water or other municipal system as to unduly subject the area to hazards affecting health, safety, or the general welfare. The use will not impair the integrity or character of the district or the adjoining districts, and that the use will not cause an excess of that use, which could be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. So we need to make all these findings, and through the hearing process we may. But I've contacted a couple members of the planning board too to try and get some comment on them. They would have to go to site plan review as well for this, but the use itself, once granted, if granted by the zoning board, can't then go back and be denied by planning or another board. I think I saw Tilly here, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong, Tilly. You know, they can't then deny that use. They can only try to improve it and design the site in such a way as to mitigate any potential detriment. And am I fair, Tilly, in summarizing that?
Okay.
So, but the use, once it's granted, they have it. So, anyway.
Steve?
Yeah, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I think when Mr. Mello came before the board, it was more of a heads up, you know, here's what I'm planning to do. I don't believe he asked.
memory.
Yeah, he didn't ask for our support or anything, and I know that the board, you know, had questions, and we were asking about traffic. We were asking about, you know, the way it works today. Everyone's out on the road. You know, the driveway isn't wide enough, and you know, I think we had the opportunity to ask the questions, but I think where our understanding, at least for myself, was that he just wanted to give us a heads up that he was gonna start the process, and just provide us an overview of what he was looking to do. So we really didn't get into any of the details. I do remember though that he had mentioned that he has to convert to this indoor, regardless of whether he's expanding or not.
DEP permit renewals require an upgrade at the
So that's
facility.
why he came to us. He said, I have to do this anyways, but I would like to increase it. At least that's my recollection of the meeting.
That's exactly
That sounds
Yeah,
fair.
and I think that's where we kind of ended it. I don't think we really, I'm pretty certain that we didn't.
No, it was a
take
heads
it
up.
or anything.
A heads up meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't here for that meeting, but, I mean, I certainly have my concerns about traffic. Going there on Saturdays and some Sundays, if you're in line for the recycle, you can't get past the people that are in front of you. And it's been it does back up to 133.
Yeah.
at the current level. Now, I have a question on, you said they would go from 50% capacity to 300?
It's,
Did I say that right?
Mike can correct me as well.
50
It-
tons to-
50
Tons
tons
per
to
day.
300. Right. So the question I have on that
It's
is.
a six-fold increase in the amount of tonnage of
Right.
trash,
Is your-
potentially.
Is your approval all or nothing? Can you come back with a counter proposal and
We wanna
say?
start negotiating. Generally, what we do is we look at the request that's before us.
Right.
I don't know how to necessarily, without a full-blown traffic study and a technical expert reviewing what the impacts are, potential impacts are in town, which is one of the things we wanna review, is their study. We may need to hire our own technical expert to review this, but, you know, what tonnage level increases how many trucks per day,
Right.
you know, through the town, and is that acceptable, not acceptable to the town?
Not specific to this approval, but on an approval, does the board have a latitude to give a counter proposal, or is it all or nothing?
I think we could express concerns. Yeah, they can come back and
Okay.
revise their plan. We've done it several times. We've had, there's all sorts of issues that come before us, and they come back and they redesign things, you know, if needed. You
I
know,
certainly have my concerns. I mean, having been there the day that outdoor facility went up in flames, having been there to see how intense that was at the tonnage that's there now, because they crushed a boat and it had a little bit of gasoline in it, and that thing went up like, you wouldn't believe the heat coming off of that. I was with Chief Mulligan in his car, and we got out of the car and we retreated real quick, because I'm gonna tell you, it would melt you, and it was bad. And you know, so again, I know it's a freak thing, but geez, if we're gonna go from 50 ton to 300 ton, man, now you could really have some problems if there's a disaster like that again. But I'm really concerned about the traffic backing up and the additional trucks coming into town. Now, who's to say they're gonna come? You know, they could come down 97, they could come 133, they could be coming from
all
Haverhill,
over.
you know, Groveland. I mean, it's you know, the traffic. Trying to get through town at 5 o'clock, you know, coming down 133. Forget it. I go 97 and cut through the back way. I'm lucky enough that I live on that side of town, but I certainly have my concerns about any type of expansion.
particularly that left-hand corner, when a truck is coming in,
Yeah.
trying to make that left, it's single lane there, coming west.
Well, I've argued that one of the solutions to that, you know, just addressing that, you know, point is, you know, putting certainly an hours of operation of that facility, you know, pretty much a Monday through Friday thing, where you put a 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, so our kids can get to school, right? So all those cars were off the road, and then 3 o'clock is basically when all the kids are then getting picked up. So you have a good 6-hour window, okay, where you don't have as many cars on the road, okay? You know, people are at work, people are at school, people are off doing whatever they're doing during the day. You don't have, you know, as much traffic, you know, during those hours during a weekday. Now, to your point, the weekends, yeah, I don't see how that happens at all. So my whole thing is, I think you could probably do it, okay, but there would have to be time restrictions on when you did it. Again, 9 to 3 weekdays, period, end of story. That's it. If that's what you want, great. Maybe, right? I'm just
And
throwing
this
it
is
out
also
there
in your lease
for a
already,
solution.
that you guys, the
All right.
hours of operation are in the lease, not that we couldn't condition it to something else.
Yeah, I mean,
the
I-
transfer station closes at 3:30 in the afternoon anyway.
Well, I mean, we as
No,
part of
just
a
as a-
condition. I mean,
just as a point
we could
of-
put 2:30. You know, I mean, we'll throw out terms and see. My whole point is, you know, maybe you allow them to come at a time,
Yep.
okay, where there's not as much traffic. Again, people aren't picking up kids. People aren't, you know, driving kids to school. People aren't getting to work. You know, where we all know that Georgetown is that avenue that everyone goes, you know, through to get to 95, you know, for work. So, again, just a thought in terms of how we might, you know, be able to do that to, you know, at least cut down on the traffic, and we'd have to restrict weekends. There's no way we could allow those big trucks during the weekends.
My other concern,
yeah.
if I can just finish, I
Yeah.
have 2 points. My other concern is this, to Jeff's point, that if you stood down there and watched what's going on, it's not Georgetown residents that are dumping the big loads. These are all companies, construction. I was there this morning to drop off one bag of trash. And I turn, and there's a friend of mine who owns a remodeling company, does kitchens. there he is with his big trailer dumping all this stuff, and I know his business is in Middleton.
Mhm.
It's not even Georgetown. There's a ton of people coming
They
in.
absolutely
It's-
agree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
their
Right.
business expansion plan is not to try to
So
get
my
more
point
Georgetown.
is, if we're gonna
It's-
do this, then I want market value.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, and that's certainly something
I'll
we
tell you
will,
that.
we will absolutely positively address. We will get market value.
It means in terms of the lease.
What's the
Right. Any
impact
type of
fees as
expansion.
well, right?
Right.
That's right.
I think we
Impact
talked
fees
about
and-
that. Who owns Route 133 was a question we had. And we said, so if all the heavy trucks are going down 133, is it the responsibility of the town, the state, you to maintain it? And that's where I think the impact fees want to look at.
Right. You know, so if we're gonna do it, if we do any type of expansion, you know, again, I know that there's a benefit to having the transportation station in town for the town, you know, for town residents to bring their trash and, you know, periodically bring, you know, if you ever tear down a shed or something like that. But the point is, I think the deal that they're getting now on the lease is a pretty aggressive deal for that convenience. If we're gonna expand, then to me, all bets are off, that we're gonna treat this just like any other business,
Yeah.
i.e., the, you know, the marijuana growers and anybody else that comes in. I want market value. Again, I don't like to put, you know, hang a number over someone's head to say, oh, if you meet this number, we'll do whatever you want. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I want market value.
We have to look primarily at the potential detriment to the neighborhood and the town in general. And it's hard to put a number on
Right.
what's it worth waiting in line behind a truck for 15 minutes when you're trying to get to work. I mean, so it's difficult. And that, as far as work, that lease isn't done. So
Right.
it's not a piece of evidence that we can kind of look to and say, okay, I mean, it's a consideration, I guess,
Right.
but
More diesel fumes,
We haven't
you know,
even
all those things that come with, you know, and a mitigation plan for the abutters. So that was my, all right, I'm done.
On to one. All right, we're gonna take a last comment from Gary, because we have to move on. Gary, go
Chance
ahead.
to go, I'll try not to start out like I did on my last one, but I am having similar feelings, okay? I've been in town 65 years now. That area was the dump. That's where everybody took their trash. So, it's in a residential area and it's non-conforming. I'm not quite sure why, because that's where we always took our trash and we're still doing that. As far as the traffic goes, it's gonna increase no matter what we do. You know, if you've been in here for a number of years, you've seen the increase. You've seen the square go from no stop signs at all to street lights that still don't do their job, that the traffic is there. So, you know, I read over the report that they gave us. They came in, they gave us, as they said, I took it as a heads up is what they were doing that night. And, but I also saw a lot of improvements. And I saw a lot of reference to a state plan on what the state does with the trash. And they were trying to conform to that part for the whole state. So when that happens, I realize that means other people come into town with their trash as they do now. So I'm hopeful that it can all work out. I know it may not be the greatest. I want to look at it as an improvement for the neighborhood, because what's in there now isn't the greatest. And they're trying to conform it to state standards. Are we gonna get more business? Yes. But, you know, you don't want to be known as the trash center of the area, but it's gotta go somewhere. It's been going there. So I'd like to look at it as improvements. That's my feeling. Do you look at letters? I mean,
Oh,
if
absolutely.
if I write a letter as a citizen, not
That's
as
why
a
we're here, to
selectman,
try to get some
you know,
feedback from some of the other town
stating that,
leaders.
you know,
because-
like I say, the traffic is the traffic. We talk about so many things tonight. Traffic is one of the biggest issues we got. We can't get people in our buildings downtown. A lot think it's sewerage. I think it's more traffic and pedestrian safety and things of that sort, more than the sewerage.
The
And,
the only
there's
comment
ways
to
to-
that, which came up at the
and-
hearing, was why would we want to invite that? Why do we want to invite the
okay,
problem to get
well, on
worse?
that fact, if we're complying, if we're helping them to comply with a state set standard for, let's say, in plain terms, where our rubbish is gonna go and get recycled, whatever they do with it, then I think in some way, somebody here needs to be contacting the state and say, what are you gonna help us do with the road? If we're gonna allow this facility to go into town and allow them to come up to what you as a state say needs to be, is something that we need as a state, then give us some help with the roads, you know, so. That's my feelings. I'll try to write it all down for you in a short letter, about 3-5 pages.
Okay.
Well, Jeff, we have to move forward.
Absolutely.
With our agenda, we
Okay.
appreciate you coming in,
Absolutely.
giving us some feedback.
All right. If you guys have any other comments, by all
Thanks for your
means,
time.
either go to me or through Mike and.
When's the
Patty.
next meeting? Do you have it posted?
December 5th.
December 5th.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, as we continue to try to, clear the room, let's see, Busing Hampshire lane deed acceptance.
That's just a,
That's-
administrative, function,
Okay,
Paul's here for the.
Yeah.
What do we?
yeah, I was gonna say, why we do that, all right, that was next, housing, I kinda thought that lane deed acceptance was gonna be a shorter amount of time, but the housing production, update would be great.
Hi, I'm
Hi, how are
Do
you?
we have anybody before we get, cause it's gonna be lengthy, do we get, is James Ogden here? No? Okay. Okay.
Almost nobody here now.
Well, I just didn't know, I mean, we had that appointment, and if somebody
it's
was
Rock
waiting,
Pond.
I just
Okay.
wanted to, it was.
He's my intern.
You're what?
I'm with the chief.
Oh,
He's my intern.
oh, okay, you know what, then I'm sorry, I was just trying to,
Are we okay?
please,
Okay.
sit down.
I have a handout for you guys. There'll be tests afterwards.
Open book.
No, no.
Hopefully, it's 9:30, it's too late for.
Yeah, you're right. What I did, the idea here is to give you guys an idea what the housing production plan is all about. And it's 99 pages, and trying to condense that into 5 or 6 minutes, pretty tough to do. So what this is, basically,
I was hoping for more time.
hoping more time. Basically what this is I took the table of contents and I made a handout out of it, and I've inserted tables that I think have specific information that would be interesting to you. And so what I thought we could do, we just go through that. And I do have, I've got a housing production plan with me if we really want to go into the 99 pages.
They have copies of it.
Excuse me?
They have electronic copies.
Oh, I know, but has everybody read it? No.
I'm on
Good,
page
yeah.
88.
I'd like to.
Yeah, it's great.
Did you get any booklets of it? Because there's many charts and graphs in here, sorry, Mr. Chair, but that were meant for color, and all I got is black and white.
I think that's a color printer issue. I printed mine out on a color
You pay
printer.
that kind of money for, I don't know what you paid, shouldn't they at least give you a few?
Oh, she did. What she sent out was in color. But if you don't put it in a color printer, or if you don't,
He didn't share.
Did mine out.
He didn't, your
Yeah.
video didn't
No,
share.
it's like I said when we did the other plan, we paid like $16,000 to have the guy give us some presentation, and we don't even get a booklet. We get a black and white thing with graphs that are meant for color. I mean, we're paying for something.
yeah.
We should get something reasonable to put in front of us.
Well, they delivered it as
I
a
agree.
PDF, Gary,
Yeah, it's a PDF, and the PDF is in color.
which is full color.
No, they should be presenting it. We shouldn't have to be printing it.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, so the paragraph here to just kind of lead in, the HPP is a demographic analysis of where Georgetown was, is currently, and some recommended directions on where it's moving. I'm just reading the front. It's primarily an action plan for the Georgetown Affordable Housing Trust from the perspective of creating the affordable housing as defined by the Housing Production Plan. The information is useful in other areas, though. It's actually, like I say, a demographic analysis of Georgetown. And if you look at the charts, you'll see that they start at where we were, where we are, and where things are going. So it's not just for housing. If you look at it, it's population demographics, not housing. So the production plan has to be approved by the Georgetown Affordable Housing Trust, which it was, and the Georgetown Planning Board, which it was this week. So it now it must be signed off by the chair of the Board of Selectmen in a letter to the State Department. And I've got a copy, and I think I sent one to Mike today. It looks like it's very simple. It just goes to the DHCD with the Board of Selectmen's signature on it.
And Paul, you mentioned that both the committees have already approved
Yep.
this. Okay.
There was a lot of discussion in the planning board. The issue was the housing production plan a requirement that everybody follow? And it's not. It's really a strategy. And the strategy needs to be implemented in effective ways to make it happen. If it's not, it won't happen. So what I did, again, with the first, let's see what I do. Just to get to an example of how the housing production plan can be used in a non-housing area, if you go to page 2 and table 6, right at the bottom, what you'll see there is a graph of the age distribution in Georgetown. Starts out at 2000, goes 2010, 2021 projected. And if you look at the two categories, the one in red and then the one in blue, the one in red is essentially the age group of the people who would be going to people who would be going to schools. And it actually drops from 1859 in 2010, projected into 17,000 or 1,767, and it's 19.8% of the population. If you look at the blue on the bottom, basically what it's saying is that the population of the elderly people is going to go up by about a third, and you end up with 34% of your people being elderly. And if you do the whole production plan, what they come through with a number of different times is that the population in Georgetown is aging. Some of the housing that we need is for seniors. In fact, that's one of the pushing needs. But the people that could use that is like if you're building a new high school, like we just did. This is the kind of stuff you should look at before you go off and build a high school. You should say, what am I going to look at? What's the build out of Georgetown going to be? We have restrictions because of wetlands and things like that. And this is what they did. The group that did it, the actual plan itself, they actually did the plan in 2011 and 2004. So they were familiar with Georgetown, so they actually knew what they were doing, and it still took them quite a bit of time to get the information together. Part of it is the turnover in personnel in Georgetown, and especially the voluntary groups, is pretty high. So your knowledge base really isn't that long a time period. So they had to do a lot of digging to get it. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah, that's the point. This was an update of our housing production plan as required by DHCD every 3 years, Paul?
Yeah, it's actually 5 years, and it kind of like tends to go out to 7 because you start something on the right time and you don't finish it
That's
within a
about
year.
where you are, 7 years.
Yeah,
probably since the
7
last
years,
one.
yeah.
The last one, 2011.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there was one in 2003 or 4.
Right.
So the first table just gives you an idea of what kind of income we actually have in the households in Georgetown. And essentially, the common denominator is a 2-person household. And Lawrence is where we get our average median income from, and it's $65,750. That's for a 2-person household, which would be a couple. If you look then at the table below that, you'll see that let's see.
What page are you on now?
Yeah, let's see, what page?
Still on
Is it
page
on 1 or 8? 1 or 3?
Actually, yeah, what we want to look at is, let's see, I have table 2. Yep, the table 2, basically, if you look at it, yeah, front page 1, the 30% AMI, if you look at it, basically there's let's say here, the average median income, 30% of the average median income, they could afford a property that would be essentially $568 a month. In Georgetown, there isn't such a property.
Yep.
So if you look at it, you go to 50% AMI, and even then, you're pushing it. I have Longview down in the bottom 2 lines, and the market rate on Longview units, 1 bedroom is the $1,535 a month, $1,530, and a 2-bedroom is $1,800 a month. And the affordable is $698 and $821. So at 50% AMI, 50% of the average salary, you're getting into the affordable units. You have to get up into the 80% to be able to actually live in an apartment in Longview, which means there's a lot of people out there that don't have any place that they can actually get into. One of the things that we've got, we have the Affordable Housing Task Force has put together a rental assistance program, and so the people that don't fit into some of these things, we actually can help out. But we're dealing with 4 households, and there's a lot more than that need the help. But for a lot of reasons, they're probably not going to be it's probably not going to help. Let's see, where am I at here? So if we go to let's see.
Paul, if I could
Yeah,
interject
go
a
ahead.
little bit. I mean, I've been sitting on this trust, the Affordable Housing Trust, since its creation. It was one of the things that I wanted to do when I first came on as a young selectman a long time ago. And so the housing production plan basically is a roadmap for the trust and the task force to move forward initiatives where it really counts. For instance, how do we tackle additional senior housing? How do we tackle rental assistance? We've got a rental assistance program going, like Paul has said. We also purchased a home in town and have a family living in an affordable unit. We watch over all the other affordable units. We watch the deed riders, improvements. We watch the condition of those particular units. But don't forget, we need to be over 10%, right?
Yeah, we're a little over 11 right now.
We have to be over 10% to safeguard against a 40B just walking right in by right, because we're under that 10% threshold. We meet once a month. This is our roadmap to, not to say we're gonna do every one of these initiatives and we have to do every one of these initiatives, but at least we've identified where the need is, and we're trying to do as much as we can. Again, we're volunteers. There's 6 of us, basically 5 or 6 of us that meet, and we're trying our best to work towards these types of improving these types of programs. We do have a significant amount of money in our account. I happen to be the treasurer of the trust. So we purchased a property as part of the Turning Leaf development, and that seems to be going well. We've also been talking with Habitat for Humanity about building a couple of units in town. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to implement. And again, just like Parks and Rec and everybody else, we're volunteers, and we can only go so far. But again, one of our responsibilities is to have a housing production plan and have it approved by the 3 bodies, the trust, the selectmen, and the planning board, and it's submitted to the state to show them that we've got our act together. And, we know what we're doing. Again, with limited resources and limited help, right? We can hire professionals to do these projects for us. And again, we're trying to partner with people. We've talked to countless landlords. I mean, we've also got the friendly 40B going on downtown, which is kind of stalled with Alan. So we've been heavily involved in that. So we're kind of I wouldn't say an extension of the planning board, but almost a little bit in that area.
Yeah, we have to, the planning board they can really help us a lot in the sense that they have an inclusionary bylaw. And that bylaw says that when you build a large development, 10% of the housing has to be affordable. And that's worked. Attorney Leaf gave us 2 properties plus some cash. But what's happening right now is there's something called an OSRD, which is an open space reduced reduced housing area. And the OSRD does not require anything for the affordable housing. There's no compensation or anything like that. And lately, that's become the development type of choice for developers when they come in. As long as they keep below, I think it's 5 houses, and they're supposed to be all on the same road. It's clustered housing with an open space around it. And that's what they're doing. And so we're not getting too much right now out of the planning board.
That was, can I ask a question there? Because that was it. I was gonna ask. But we've got a new town planner who I think is very good. Because that's one of the areas where I feel it mentions a lot in here about better planning.
Right.
And we do hear about the rental assistance, cause I'm on community preservation, as you all know, and that's usually supported every year.
Yep,
The-
they've
the
been very
Part of
good,
that has,
yeah.
you have to, you know, we're supposed to do, the town's supposed to give some of its money towards this out of CPC funds. But, you know, and to me, it's not all about affordable housing. Sometimes it is also just about reasonable housing. I mean, it may not fit within the state's plans,
Right.
but at least we can
Yeah.
perhaps try to come towards some plan of something reasonable that people, you know, that our police officers and some of our firefighters, I mean, cause there's a lot of information in here, and not everybody is making the bucks that you now sort of have to get into Georgetown.
Yeah,
And that's some of the stuff that's in here that, you know, we need to work on that. And that's, you know, it's not just, to me, it's not just affordable, it's reasonable.
Right.
I mean,
Well, and
and
that's-
there are models out there that can be looked at. And I think as a town, planning-wise, we could go there.
As long
But-
as
but-
we're above that 10% number,
Yeah,
you know, because that's the first piece.
That,
of it.
that is, but that's
Seems
kind of
like
like
it always will
that's
be.
kind of like a magic
Can I-
number. It doesn't really tell you how you're doing with your people in town.
That's exactly what Gary's point.
Yeah.
but this is, you know, this is one of the best things, the best tools, I think, that we've got. I've seen a lot of reports come through, and the one that we got before, I mean, it's an excellent tool, everybody should have it. But I do got a question, I don't know if anybody's got their whole thing on page 27, okay? And it tends to make me question, I think there's a lot of misinformation there. You gotta look at table 18 on page 28. And it's going into employers. I mean, they still
Oh.
have BW Press Incorporated
Yes.
down here
Yes.
as, you know,
Yes.
employing 50 to 99 people. So if they got that wrong,
They did.
I mean, that whole thing just doesn't look right. You know, they've got Georgetown Mobile,
With
right?
60 people or something like
Yeah,
that.
Georgetown Mobile employing, at Central Street, employing 50 to 99 people.
Could be, yeah, but it could be the parent company.
I went
Well,
round and
that's
round.
what I'm wondering, just like we had the people here in front of us for the used car license.
Right, exactly.
Okay, but I
High
mean,
turnover.
I do have to kinda,
Yeah.
you know, are there other errors in there?
These
That,
are
you know,
areas-
those were easy ones for me to see.
Yeah, yeah.
The others, not so easy for me to pick up.
I went round and round with the person that developed Lynn Sweet, and that was one of them, because there were a couple of corporations in there that I looked at them, and one of them was just a service rep for that company, so it was one person, and she had it down as 200, and it was just bogus, but she's very good, but she's very, very interesting, she refuses to change almost anything, so, but that's the chart that probably is the least believable in the whole document, the rest of it's pretty darn good.
I guess you guys have gone over this.
Oh, yeah.
well in your-
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. She's an interesting person, to say the least.
So I think the ask, right, Paul, the ask is for this board to support the housing production, or the updated housing production
Yeah.
plan. We've supported this in the past, and all we're asking from the trust perspective is for this board, along with the housing, the Affordable Housing Trust and the, planning board to approve this, updated plan.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
I realize it's getting late. Can I
Alright.
throw out a couple more thoughts, though?
You know, Bob, unless we
Well,
have
we're almost
any,
there.
unless we have any pullback, do we have any pullback on this from anybody?
I'd just like to readdress it at some point and decide, you know, where are we going with what we've got here? So I'm not saying I've got no pullback with it, but I
Yep.
would like to readdress it at a Board of Selectmen meeting, or perhaps some joint meetings as to.
We do update,
You know.
we do a presentation to the, CPC, maybe we should come in and do a presentation to this board too, of progress on what we've done
Yeah.
in the course of the year, because this is our roadmap that we tried to follow,
Yeah.
as best we possibly can. There's opportunities that come up that aren't part of
Like
this.
I say, I'd really like to know, going down the planning stage, where are we going, and
If
it sounded like you're getting pushback for planning, so.
I mean, so maybe, at some point in time, Gary, you know, if you want to,
Come to our meetings too. we
So
can
what do
do
you
that.
need
you know, we
tonight?
can-
You need a motion tonight to have the chair?
Actually, the planning board, or the Board of Selectmen have to sign a letter, so I would assume it'd take a motion to,
But is it the
Authorize the
chair?
chair.
yeah, is it a
Okay.
motion to give
Well,
me the
you need-
authority?
Okay, leave it.
If I may interject,
Yeah.
you need to approve
Town of Georgetown respectfully, blah, blah, blah. Was adopted by the municipal planning board and the select board of the town of, so you have to adopt the HPP, and authorize the chairman to sign the letter.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion saying, any, further discussion?
Or I'm on the trust, should I abstain?
I don't think you have to.
No.
I don't see anything holding us back from doing
Yeah, I think you're gonna get 4 anyways, but.
it.
Alright, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstention.
Alright, we'll abstain over there. Paul, respectfully,
Can we do
we didn't
it?
have any pushback, so, you know,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure we keep up,
But what I would like to make sure is that you guys really understand what's in there. Because when we go to the planning board, when we go to town meeting, there'll be pushback because a lot of people don't wanna see those that have, you know, that really need help in town. Even though we have like 120 severely burdened people in town right now. So we're a fairly wealthy town, but we still have people that have needs.
Sure,
And
of course.
if you guys aren't behind it, then we're probably gonna get nowhere.
Agreed.
No, that's been a thing of mine, that we need to keep the town affordable and not just have it
There you
become
go.
an enclave.
In fact, that's one of the things she addressed in here, in the sense that we don't build houses for new couples, you know, with one child or anything like that. We build McMansions for people that already have everything that they need, basically. I mean, a 4 to 5 bedroom houses what they're building now, not 1 to 2 to 3.
No, we don't, and the ones that's selling the most in town are those properties that are 350 and below.
Yep.
And
400 and below.
Yep.
it's full of information. Like, since David and I have been on the Board of Selectmen since 2009, we've increased the tax rate over 50%.
Yes, that's actually shown.
I failed at what I hope to do.
There's a graph that shows it better.
That was the authorization?
Yeah.
Okay, alrighty.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming
Thank
in.
you, Paul,
We
on all
appreciate
your
it.
work.
We meeting, is it meeting tomorrow night? I can't
Yep.
make it. We'll have enough
Do we have a
to say.
quorum? I mean, it's kinda serious, like we've got
Yeah, check.
vouchers.
Yeah, check. I think
Chief.
you'll be alright.
Come on up.
Great, I sat here all night, now you get me when I'm sneezing.
Why do you think I just called you up? I saw that.
That thing, was it just the chair signs it, or did we all?
No, just myself.
Okay.
Inside.
Yes, usually.
Hey, Chief, you're up.
The final request was with regard to the Rock Pond Committee that I had approached the board a number of months ago with, and
Chief, I can stop you 1 second?
Sure.
What's your name, sir?
Bruce Freed.
Bruce, thank you so much for hanging in with us. I
No problem. Thank
try
you.
to clear the room as best we can, and some things just take a lot longer, so thank you for hanging in. Our apologies it took so long.
So-
No, Chief, I'm sorry.
that's okay. So what I did is I had submitted that list, and at the request of the board, resubmitted the list in the order in which I received it. And I guess for the board is to determine how large you're going to make the committee and what its focus will be. Do you want 5, 7? I mean, we have 1, 2, 3. You had 10 interested parties. I know Gary had mentioned possibly putting other folks on there. Excuse me.
Well, didn't we come up with something like 7 members with 3 alternates?
Right, it just wasn't voted on, and that, I was requested to resubmit the list in the order in which I received the,
I don't think I had the list in the packet tonight.
There's no list. We don't have that list.
I submitted it to Janet.
It's not an attachment on the meeting.
You're on the agenda, but that's about it.
No attachment.
So we're basically here just to talk about how many people, correct? that
Well,
we wanna
I
put
think
on
the
this
board
committee?
just needs to formalize the charge of the committee, and
Yep.
like I said before, when I went through this previously with regard to hunting regulations, I need the police department to be separated from the enforcement aspect of creating the actual legislation we will enforce. And I look to the board to create this committee, give them a charge, and then I will certainly serve in an ex officio capacity on that board to help bring advice, knowledge, or whatever they need so that they can create what they're looking for. It's difficult to create your own rules when you're going to enforce them. It's good to keep it separate.
Yeah. All right, so discussion from the board.
Well, I'm sure you've talked to all the people on the list,
I have.
You guys want to say this?
and do you have any reservations of, well, it's kind of opening a
No, I don't have any reservations. You know,
capable
And these are all people that live.
I don't
right
know
on the
anything
outskirts,
about
right?
them. I just know that these folks
They've expressed interest.
had expressed interest in serving in some capacity because they do have an interest in what goes on the pond.
Yep.
And I know Gary had thought of possibly putting someone on there who's maybe from outside that arena.
But nobody came forward.
No, sir.
Bruce, if you don't mind me asking, so I know you feel strongly enough about this to attend our meeting tonight, which I
Absolutely.
applaud you for.
I'm probably the impetus for this whole thing, yes.
Yep. So just give us a brief, kind of minute synopsis of what you're seeing on the pond right now for those watching.
Never even heard of Rock Pond until 3 or 4 years ago when we came and looked at the house, and we've been here for a while. What happens is at the beginning of the summer, this past summer, it just seemed very out of control. Speedboats going absolutely nuts around the perimeter. I had water skiers within maybe 10 or 15 feet of my dock, basically swamping it, and if somebody hit it, it would be pretty bad. And the other thing is that we've seen a lot of erosion. My property alone has allegedly lost 3 feet of land in the last 34 years. The pond is filling in. The cove end was 16 feet deep. 40 years ago, it is now 12 feet deep. So it's all coming from the edges, and most of that is from power boats. I've actually done some studies myself, and I have a presentation put together if I ever need it on this. And it's filling in 4 times the rate it was 100 years ago, is basically it. So what I see is it got out of control. I asked people to take it easy a little bit. Some people were nice about it, some people weren't. I had to call the police a few times, and it got pretty ugly out there, and I think that there just needs to be some order and some basic rules on the wake laws are there. Nobody seems to really want to obey them unless the chief put a no wake buoy in, and it calmed things down quite a bit. But I kind of got the wrath of that because everybody thought I put it in myself, actually, and
I put it in.
he did. But people, the first week, everybody just came, speeding around my area, yelling at me because they thought I put it in. But there needs to be some sort of order there. We're gonna end up with a bad accident as well as lose the pond. Maybe not in our generation or even our children's, but in our grandchildren's or great-grandchildren's generation. By the calculations, 150 years, Rock Pond is a meadow if it keeps up.
Yeah, and Bruce, you hit on it. I mean, if anybody knows me on this board, I've talked about safety up and down about multiple different things. And I think that's my number one, concern. And we've read about them, these accidents. It seems like they're getting more and more prevalent over the years. We've seen athletes, we've seen just kids, that are goofing around. And kids will still be kids even if you have rules. Quite frankly, let's face it, it's still going to happen somewhat. But we have to have something in place. So we have 10 people on that list. Personally, I think a 7-person board with those 3 reserves is kind of what I like. I think 10 people on a board is kind of a lot. I mean, all of these people though are residents, so it's hard to say that 3 of these people can't be actually on the board and not reserves. So I don't know what's our thought on that.
There would be nothing preventing them from attending the meetings and voicing their opinions on there.
They can certainly vote.
It would just be they'd have 7 members that vote.
Yeah, Mike.
If you're gonna be voting, you should have an odd number of people, not an even number, because you're gonna end up.
Oh, that's
with
right. 10 is that's
with a
right.
tie,
Okay.
and you've got 2 people from the same household on the committee.
Right. Oh, is there 2
that,
on the
that gives that household.
Okay, so it's basically 9.
An extra vote.
Yeah, so there's basically 9 because you can't do that. You're right.
One other concern is that I would hope that it wouldn't be, 9 boaters and myself, 9 people with speedboats, and because then it would simply just be, I'm outnumbered anyhow. I would hope that it would just be a cross-section of people. I'm not sure who applied to be on the committee. But,
Are you aware of the names here?
I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
See at least a couple of other people.
So I would think that if you set up a committee
That's
with
reasonable.
7 voting members and 3 alternates.
Right.
And if there were 2 people from one household, one of them is an alternate.
Yeah.
If I may again?
Yes, sir.
I think one of the chief questions the chief asked was, what is the scope of the committee? And I'm still not quite understanding that. Was it to create bylaws, speed limits? I mean.
Well, I think the charge of the committee would be that the residents in that area have specific issues, and they hinge on boating rules and regulations. There is absolutely no bylaw at all. There are no bylaws on our ponds. Local bylaws is Mass General law.
We tried at one point, right? And the state said they were illegal? Am I wrong or something? We tried to limit the horsepower, and I thought that we got told you can't do that.
Well, I know that was a number of years ago. I wasn't actively involved in it at that time. That was many years ago.
That was a long time.
But I think that in the end, the police department's responding to the calls. And like I had presented before, worse than over-regulation is no regulation. So somehow, some way, we need to regulate it, as do other communities. And it's not as if we'll be reinventing the wheel from a law enforcement perspective. However, it's the community that needs to tell me what they want to enforce. It would be very easy as an appointed harbor master to just shut the pond down. Right? I mean, there are statutory provisions that allow that to happen. I don't want to do that. I think that it's their backyards, it's for their enjoyment. It's their neighborhood. So these people need to get together and determine what, if any, bylaws need to be created in conjunction with what's there for 90B under Mass General law, and to identify the specific problem to prevent calls.
The problem that I'm hearing, the primary problem I'm hearing, is the wakes
That's right.
caused by boats that may be hauling skiers.
Or
What about jet skis?
There's no jet skis.
no
Well,
jet skis.
some of the boats are actually jet propelled. It's not just the pulling skiers, it's the boats themselves. No, they don't obey the wake laws, and they're coming 20 to 50 feet from shore as fast as they can, when it's 150 feet from shore, no wake. And it creates waves
Pretty
on the
much
shore.
shuts down the pond.
Yeah, it creates,
How wide is it?
Not big enough
Right.
for what's happening out there. And there are paddle boarders that this summer had to actually jump on people's docks and wait for a while to be able to get back on their paddleboard.
And currently, right now, the town of Georgetown's harbor master responsibilities fall on me, as most of our divisions outside law enforcement with uniformed police officers. I have someone out there maybe 8 hours a week. That's all I have. I don't have, I finally just got a boat up and running. It's not a funded program. I take it out of the police budget. I try to do what I can to keep peace on the water, utilizing what I have. The environmental police knock it back to local jurisdiction and control. There's a public boat launch down there on that particular body of water. It's a very small pond, by definition, in comparison to the number of larger boats that go on that body of water. I'm a boater myself. The boats are too big for the pond. Very little enjoyment when you put a 90 or 120 horsepower motor on a boat in a body of water that size. It's near impossible not to have intrusion with wake, a no wake zone. If you know how to operate a boat properly, you can get through a small area and not create a wake. So there's education, but at a program that's not funded, and we talk about traffic and all of our other issues. I don't have the manpower to sit someone out there on the weekends and monitor this activity. I'd have to hire somebody to do that.
I know I've been a boater all my life, and but years ago, I got stopped by the environmental police when I was on Pentucket Pond and water skiing. And he said, well, he's supposed to stay 150 feet from shore, but on small ponds like this,
we allow you to go closer. It's just what I got told by that particular officer. Now, maybe that was just his opinion of the law, I'm not sure. But I mean,
It certainly was, and,
you know, 'cause
and if you look at the environmental police manpower, I mean, they will assist me as needed with regulatory, backup and questions. They do occasionally patrol that public ramp, but it's our responsibility.
No.
Well, I think, not having anything in place is certainly not.
Well, that's
you know,
what I
the
say,
answer.
Mr. Chairman, I agree
Okay,
wholeheartedly.
I mean, nothing's gonna get resolved if we don't have anything. I think, people pretty much load their boats, at the same place, right? We don't have multiple, pretty much one land,
There's one public boat launch there.
launch, thank you.
Well, there is one that's inoperable on the Rock Pond side, which is a private association.
Yep.
Hasn't been in operation for years. It's actually degraded to a point where it's unusable, I believe.
So we had one launch, my thought is, this committee, we put it together. We do put some bylaws, in place. Post a sign, okay, at the very least, okay? I hear where you're coming from, chief, and, maybe
Enforcement. I mean,
it's a
I think, yeah, and
work
I
in
think
progress,
that
but
I need to get someone down there. I had a full-time officer who was a certified harbor master. He left to go to Beverly,
Yep.
so I lost that valuable asset. I have a part-time Ipswich firefighter who's acting as my harbor master now, me. I'm out there in my own boat,
Yep.
dealing with, the markings and the buoys, trying to educate the people who live there. I've met with many of them, and I have another officer who's volunteering to help me with those initiatives too. Another thing that this community needs to look at is, and I work with the Conservation Commission as well as the Building Inspection Office, is the dock system that we have. We don't permit our docks, we don't inspect our docks. In other communities, if you have a dock in a body of water, you have to pay for it. There are state regulation for docks versus, swim platforms and things like that. There's a myriad of things that can be done. The Conservation Commission is in charge if that is attached to the land as it goes out into the waterway. So, there are a lot of nuances in this that we really, haven't
well,
dealt with.
the good news is that we're going into winter, right?
Winter's
we
exciting
have
for
some
me with
time.
regard to the pond.
So we have some time, to,
They freeze over and then,
Winter's
they can go
coming.
fishing.
The ice
Well,
fishes.
listen, I think first thing is to put together this committee, right? Then my thought is you get some thoughts together, like,
They elect a
Things
chair
like-
and a secretary and they,
Yep.
and they try to get some work done.
That's right, and you start, putting some bylaws together, all right, in terms of what kinds of things that you'd really like to see, size of boats. I am firm, believer in that. I think, it's kind of ridiculous if you have oversized boats in a body of water that size. So, between that and, getting some other things in place that you want to see, I would think you'd
Speak to
come back,
Oxford as
you
well,
know.
I think is a big
Yeah,
one,
it's a
right?
good
Because
suggestion,
They have a lot
you
of,
know.
Oxford doesn't allow boats on any of their ponds.
yeah.
They have a 10 horsepower limit on ball.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
no-
just,
Yeah, but just to see what their bylaws are, no sense.
Well, I think part of the charge of the committee would be to
Yeah.
look to see
Absolutely.
what are the designation of us having great ponds, what are these other communities doing?
Right.
There are many communities that have bodies of water in their jurisdiction, how they're handling it. And then maybe quell some of the disputes that are going on. Can't speak to the environmental impact, I don't know anything about that. My head's too full with other things, so I don't know what's happening with that, but I know that there's probably an issue too.
Can I offer this as the charge for this committee?
yes,
To develop the rules and regulations for the safe operation of Rock Pond for the selectmen to consider.
should they?
That's outstanding.
Should it also be, Pentucket?
Safe,
I mean, wouldn't rules apply to both?
I would like to see some uniformity, I think it's
All right.
important.
Of all-
because we have on Pentucket Pond, we have a seaplane that takes off
I've
and
heard that, yeah.
Well,
it's gotta go around twice to get enough speed.
Okay,
Go when
so,
you're there, I wanna
and we've
see
had
it.
complaints on
Doesn't make a
Pawtucket
motion.
Pond, they just haven't risen to the level in the last couple of years. We've been over at Pawtucket Pond in years past with other issues too, so both ponds.
All right,
And we
how's
do
this?
control the shoreline of Camp Dennison and Baldpate, but there are regulations on that body of water.
alright, so to develop rules and regulations for the safe operation of the town's ponds and waterways for the selectmen to consider.
That's
perfect.
There's another
I'll
pond
make
off
that
at
motion.
Pillsbury. Second.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 So to facilitate the beginning
Aye.
of this, I will contact these people so that they can formulate a plan. Just for clarity, you're appointing the first 7, is that what you did?
We
appointed anybody yet.
ain't appoint anybody yet, you know,
Right.
I think we have to
This was
probably.
just a charge.
That was just that was the scope of the committee, right? The charge of the committee.
Yeah, kinda like a mission statement, we'll call it.
Do we
you know?
want to appoint?
I think that needs to be done so that we
Yeah,
can.
I would agree with that, and, I mean, it's hard to do, as we don't have.
I
anybody here.
became the depository for this board, so that
Yeah.
you didn't have to interview and do, I mean, if that's part of the board's recommendation to make these appointments, all I did was, I went to a private meeting, and I was invited to try and
Would the first,
get these folks together.
would the first 7 have the dual household?
No. She's number 8.
Well, why don't we just?
No,
I wanna make sure you're looking
Why
at
don't we
them.
just appoint the first 7, because if you get too large a board too, they may not get anything accomplished.
Well, we can appoint the first 7.
What's the
and then
date on
as-
that list, Mr. Chairman? Because I sent the email, the updated list after you advised me to do it in order of receipt is November 2nd, is when I sent this at 12/17. This is the order in which these were received. Which one do you have?
I don't see any date on this.
May I take a look at that just to see what your order is, sir?
So, we can appoint 7, or we can appoint 9 with that second family member being an alternate. You know, so.
I mean, if you appoint 7,
This is
it
the
takes
order in
4
which they
for
were
a quorum.
received.
If you appoint 9,
Oh,
it
yeah.
takes 5.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'd go with 7, you know, like you were saying.
That is the order in which they were
They
received.
can still attend the meetings and
Mine?
have input.
Right.
Yes, sir.
They can still have full participatory power, but there'd just be 3 people that.
Yeah, my only concern is that, you know, all 10 of those people put their hat in the, or, you know, hat in the ring because they're residents and they, you know, they wanna be a voice, and yes, they can do that, but they won't have a voting voice. Yeah, I feel like how do, you know, the first 7, you know, it's hard to tell those
say
other 2
appoint
people.
9 of them, and then
Appoint
the
9
one
of
person that's.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Gary, but I think, because if I were left off that, I'd be like, well, how did that happen? You know, I'm here, how was this process? You know, I wasn't even at the meeting, you know? So, as long as we're at 9, because of that, I would go with the 9 as well. Initially, I wanted 7, but I don't know how we leave those 2 people off. I mean, it seems very random.
It's only one more
Yeah.
person for a quorum.
Yeah,
5 versus
yeah.
4, so what's the difference?
So I would say let's, but that one family only has one they'll have to decide which person that is. Either the husband or the wife. I think it's Harper,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. So they'll have to decide if it's gonna be the husband or the wife that does that. But, you know, we can certainly appoint those 9.
Now, will Mike perhaps, or Janet be giving them the, do they have to get appointed?
Yeah.
Or
Yes,
like anybody
I
else?
have the appointment
And-
papers here.
Okay,
Yep,
and
okay.
you'll be giving them the understanding of the open meeting laws and all of that, I guess?
They get a committee handbook,
Yeah, they
and
get
then they
that
have
from the
to
town clerk, I
take
think.
a ethics training
Ethics
course.
training.
Yeah, the town clerk, I
Take the course from the Attorney General's office too, for open meeting law.
Should we actually tell them that and see how many actually want to move
Can I
forward?
make- can I make that-
Now you have a
you know,
committee of 3.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
that
sir.
Maybe the chief goes back and talks, and let them know what the commitment is and what they're thinking, and let's see where we're at. This isn't just like a little neighborhood get-together. This is a
Yeah, we're
big
not
deal.
drinking wine at these meetings,
Right,
you
right.
know,
This
and,
is
and
a,
just
open
hanging out.
Meeting subject to people coming to listen. You have to have minutes. You have to have a chairman. You have to have a secretary. I would go back to them and let them know what they're getting themselves into, and let's see if this committee doesn't drop down to 5 or 6. That's just a suggestion. I don't want to give you more work, chief, but that's my suggestion.
Is there
before we go
anyone-
gung-ho.
Could I get a copy of your language?
The town
with
that
regard to what
could
you
be
got?
there as a
I'll just take a
non-voting
picture of it,
member?
Dave,
Yeah.
with my phone.
There
Let
we are.
me just.
At the meeting.
I'll be able to read. I got the
You know,
gist
we
of it,
Typically have.
just so I have,
somebody
because then I wanna use the committee handbook and,
Who's present for all, right, for all types of boards, you're the planner.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Are you planning to attend the meeting, chief? or-
I wanted to get them up and started,
So
and
now-
then, like I said, I don't wanna dictate or control the meeting, I want them to be able to do what their intended purpose is. I'm a resource. You know, I'm not a voting member, my job was to get this together, try to facilitate it.
Yeah,
So that it wasn't thrown at
you
your
know, I
doorstep.
think that's, you know, we have some time. I think, Selectmen Services, suggestion is right on. You know, I think this has to be communicated back to these folks so that, you know, that they know exactly what needs to be done and that there is commitment to this. They might have no problem with it. We might come back and say all 9 are on board, right?
What I'll do is I'll send a letter, I'll get a copy of the committee handbook, and then a couple of bullet points on their charge and what they're required to do, because they do have to get
The first
appointed.
person on the list will be doing it all for you.
You promise?
Well,
Give that to Mike.
she's the one that's got the information.
All right, so just let us know on that, but, you know, I mean, yeah, I think the mission statement is great, you know, if I could call it that. And, you know, I think you all have, you know, a certain passion, you know, about, you know, kinda, you know, bringing the pond to where you need to be. So I'm sure this will get, you know, done quickly and, you know, we'll move forward. Like I said, we have a season here, you know, that we can get all this in place for you.
Time flies when you're having fun, so.
But now, remember, this charge is for all the ponds.
Right.
Ponds and waterways.
I'm wondering whether we shouldn't have at least one person or 2 people from Pentucket, if that's, I don't know, they didn't know about this, or, you know, they're gonna have to live with our,
You know, we made it known,
committees.
if anybody watches these meetings, which people do, with the last one, that, you know, if somebody wanted to come from the outside, nobody's come forward. So it's
Out there.
And I was gonna say, we just threw it out there again.
Yep.
You know, so, you know,
yeah,
people
so
can
there's
certainly.
time, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, why don't we do that, you know, and then, you know, when you have the actual commitment from folks, then, you know, we'll go forward from there. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, Mr. Chairman, before the chief leaves, I have one quick question.
Well, I think
regards to-
we have a,
Oh, does he have
oh,
something else?
we have one more, Wham, so, I'm sorry.
It was regarding the rules and regulations that Juliet Reck is working on. Is that still a work in progress?
Yes, I had reviewed those actually this weekend. I sent her an email, and I'm sure she's working. I went through them. There's some, obviously, syntax errors within the bylaws, but I think that we should have one more meeting just to drill down some of those details. They're repetitive because they're for the various locations, so some of the rules are the same. But I think we need to fix some of them just so that we're in compliance with regard to service animals, with regard to trespass and things like that. So I did send her a message, and hopefully I'll be able to touch base with her.
She's aware that these are town bylaws that have to go in front of town meeting, right?
Yeah, she's been working with legal on them.
All right, good. Just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you.
Starting construction.
All right. Okay. That it, Mike? I mean, Mike, Dave?
Yep, I'm done.
All right. Chief, all set?
Thanks, chief.
Pleasure. Thanks again for hanging in there. Appreciate it. All right, so quickly, we have a request from James Ogden to be appointed to Parks and Rec, term to expire 6/30/2018.
Did the Parks and Rec, we should have asked them.
I was gonna say, I didn't even look at it.
I think they're okay with it.
Really?
I think I brought it up to somebody.
What do you want?
All right, I'll make a motion that we appoint James Ogden to the Park and Rec Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2018.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right. James, congratulations.
Thank you for being willing.
Yep. All right, so we have the water department request to waive building permit fees for the water tank project. Mike, you wanna fill us in on this?
They're getting ready to start construction, and the builder wants to know if he has to, pay the fees.
Why
for the
wouldn't he?
permit. Because
We waive these for municipal.
we usually waive
Do we?
them for town projects.
Oh, we do? Okay.
We passed on tens of thousands of dollars on.
So why shouldn't we do it on this one?
For the Pembroke School.
Why shouldn't we do it here? Any reason?
So if we charge, the rate's only gonna go back to the water paying customers, basically. so it's gonna be part of
Wouldn't it have
How
been
much,
part
how
of
much
his
is the
bid?
fee?
I don't know.
Wouldn't he have included that in the bid?
Right, but it's still a cost, right, so that he won't charge us.
Well, you're always looking for new sources of revenue, and, you know, it's,
Not this
it's,
one.
it's.
Yeah,
That's a one-time.
we'd get a change order for the cost of the
Yeah, they take
fees.
it out. I mean, I think we've done this, you know, the precedent's already been set, we do this.
I was gonna
for
say, listen, if we do it for one, we have to do it for all, so, you know,
It's a town, it's a town.
do we have a
entity.
motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, any
We
discussion?
have a second, we need a second.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we're just passing over stuff now. Do we have a second? I'm sorry. All right, no
Second.
motion? All right, we have a second, okay. Great, so we have a motion, and a second, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna go nay.
Nay?
I'm nay as well, yeah.
Okay, 3-2, passes. All right.
Well, this,
It's a town.
we always do it.
Mike, what's it now?
Like
What's
we
this
always
busing
do it.
Hampshire Lane deed
Do we wait
acceptance
for the-
thing?
for the
Yeah,
school?
it's already been accepted, it's a donation
That's the right
from
guy,
James
too, though, 'cause it's
Busing.
like the townspeople are gonna
It was
pay for
part of the
We collected
East
income on one
Main
and then
Street
on the other.
project, to connect there were several disparate parcels to put the project together. And he donated a very small piece of land. The Conservation Commission has accepted it, and which they're legally allowed to do, but the Board of Selectmen have to approve their acceptance of the land for conservation purposes.
So what do we need? I was willing to make a motion that we allow the chair to sign any paperwork with the Flushing Hampshire Lane
The
deed
full board
acceptance.
has to sign it.
Okay, so that won't work. Well, Mr.
Make
Chair,
a motion to
move that
approve the
Flushing Hampshire Lane deed acceptance.
Second.
yes.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Giddy up. All right. So just quickly, we have a thank you letter. I didn't want to step over it
Yeah.
from Lorraine Edwards. You know, basically, they had someone in their congregation had a medical emergency that the fire department reacted to. And they came in and they really helped out, you know, the situation with that, you know, churchgoers. So we want to once again commend the fire department, you know, for their quick actions in helping that situation. And again, Reverend Lorraine Edwards did write, you know, this letter to the fire department, CC'd, you know, Chief Mitchell as well on the letter. So we certainly thank the fire department again for your quick action and for your help with the situation.
Do you wanna do the minutes, Mr. Chair?
Yep, we will,
Go through 'em real
we
quick
will
if you want.
fire through that next. So, minutes on October 16th. Bless you.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the minutes of October 16th with one change, and that would be on the 5th page, to strike the word unanimous, and that's in front of a 4-to-1 roll call vote.
Yeah, that works. Bless you. Mike, do you have that change?
I'll get
Getting to it. Page what?
5th page, it says second paragraph from the bottom, the word unanimous is in front of a 4-to-1 roll call vote. Strike that one word, the rest of it, but I didn't hear a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the minutes of the October 30th, 2017 meeting as printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have executive session minutes for October 16th.
I don't think we did. It just is briefly mentioned, and it's just briefly mentioned on the minutes we accepted, that we had there was no minutes with it.
Yeah, there's a separate minutes here.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah. Yep, right here, okay. So, do we wanna vote this?
No, I'm not seeing them, so. There's not much there.
Yeah, there really isn't, I mean, it's,
No, and there was a motion in the meeting to seal the minutes anyway.
Okay, I'm seeing them now, yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's nothing here anyway.
Well,
This was the collective bargaining.
all I'm seeing is a minute, I don't got, yeah, I'm seeing 6:15 call to order, but that was the 10:30.
October 16th, 2017.
They look like
Executive
they're-
session minutes.
Not seeing them in my packet.
It was
Nah.
attached to the back of the other minutes, maybe the
David, you got him there?
Yeah, he just
Okay.
showed them to me, Mr. Chair. I move to
Okay.
accept the executive session minutes of October 16th, 2017.
Motion and a second, any further discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, David.
All right,
That thing
let's see,
finally
we got
worked.
that. Okay.
Turkey run?
Yeah, for, Steve Nazaro.
No, I actually have to note, so there are two things on this agenda that we are skipping over. So there is a race that is, being, spoken about for, our friend Steve Nazaro. It was trying, the folks were trying to plan it for around Thanksgiving, the weekend of, they just can't pull it together, quick enough. So they're gonna reschedule, this for the springtime, and they will come back before us, in the springtime, closer to the race. So we're gonna skip over that. We're also gonna skip over, the Yes AAP, reorg letter, as we are fully aware of that, as well. So, I think that is it. We have, our next meeting on November 27th, at 7 o'clock. And, at 20 past 10, I think we're done. So, listen, I want to thank everybody for hanging in there. I want to wish, because we're not going to see anybody or be at another meeting beforehand, so I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving on the board, and a happy Thanksgiving to all those in Georgetown as well. So, thank you very much for joining.
Likewise.
Have a nice
Thanks
night.
for watching.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.